Chapter 1911. It was obvious. Although Jun Changshao dissected the demon ancestor, he also happened to save him. The so-called soul punishment was actually to detonate the time bomb embedded in the skull after going through hundreds of hellish torments, causing the soul to scatter. At that time, the law enforcement hall punished the demon ancestor with all kinds of torture. The other party happened to be in a state of soul and mind paralysis, so he didn't feel any pain at all. Later, the bomb was about to explode to announce his death sentence, but it was removed by Jun Changshao in time. In other words, the demon ancestor, who should have experienced pain and torture, successfully resolved the danger with the help of Go Sheng. He didn't even feel any pain, as if he had really done a craniotomy without knowing anything. Was he miserable? No, he was very lucky. He was lucky to meet Jun Changshao, who tortured him thousands of times but still treated him like his first love, at the darkest moment of his life. It was strange that the demon ancestor didn't even realize that there was a bomb in his head. If the Taishan old man didn't have a craniotomy, no one would have thought that there was a fingernail-sized thing hidden in his extremely small head. Very vicious. Jun Changshao commented, very thoughtful. Looking at the bomb device removed from his head, the demon ancestor fell into silence. Some things didn't need to be explained too much. That's right. He was saved by him. He was saved by a guy who took away his physique, subordinates and body. The seed that represented complicated emotions was planted in his heart, and was slowly growing. One day it would sprout. The bomb has been removed. Jun Changshao said, "You're free." Buddha says that saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. You don't have to be grateful to me. The demon ancestor almost roared. I was cheated so badly by you. And you want to be grateful for saving me once? Want? Bullshit. Eat. The demon ancestor recuperated in the ward of the medical hall for half a month. After his injuries gradually healed, he had to admit that after removing the bomb in his head, he was much more energetic than before. Even the oppressive feeling that always existed had completely disappeared. The way to control the zombies in the star spirit world was to put a bomb in the head. Not only could they control the body, but they could also control their thoughts. As long as it was removed, they would be free. The demon ancestor clenched his fists and swore in his heart. I will not be grateful to that guy. Now that he was in a good mood, he couldn't forget his grudge. He cultivated resentment almost every day. However, Jun Changshao treated this villain who used to be his enemy by providing him with the best medical facilities and top-notch meals, allowing him to fully understand the meaning of warm love. The fiend ancestor was not human. However, he was also a living being from the upper universe. He had many human characteristics, so after a while, the anger in his heart slowly faded. No, the demon ancestor roared in his heart. I haven't forgotten. I'm enduring hardships. I'm biding my time. Smack, smack. In the cafeteria, he, who was wearing a hospital gown, gently put down the bowl. Then he narrowed his eyes and said, "Another bowl." When it was dark, he brought the fried rice again. Then he returned to the kitchen and asked unhappily, "How long is this guy going to freeload?" The patriarch said so. Lu Wansher, who was busy, said, "Eat until he thinks it through." "All right," Ihei said. "I still have to serve you for a long time." The next day, the demon ancestor came to the cafeteria on time again. As soon as he sat down, Jun Changshao appeared in front of him and said with a smile, "Your face is rosy and lustrous. Your injuries are recovering well." The demon ancestor became vigilant. He still knew himself. He did not think that the other party would let him freeload. The more selfless the care, the more hidden the trick. Jun Changshao ordered a spicy fish head and sat next to him. While waiting for the dishes to be served, his fingers tapped the table regularly. Tap, 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 tap. The atmosphere was slightly oppressive. The demon ancestor became more cautious and did not even dare to eat. In the end, he could not help but break down and say, "What do you want?" Jun Changshao stopped tapping the table and said with a serious expression, "Do you want to do something big?" "No." The demon ancestor answered very decisively. "This guy must be tricking me. I must stay true to my heart and not be fooled by his expression and words." Are you sure? Yes. Seeing Go Sheng's serious expression, the demon ancestor was a little shaken. According to the investigation during this period of time, Jun Changshao said, the number of corpse servants in the star spirit world is basically the same as the martial artists. It might even be slightly higher. The demon ancestor did not speak. Indeed, there were many corpse servants in the star spirit world. Although they had no status or dignity, they were spread across the entire plane. Whether it's humans or other creatures, they should enjoy fair rights since birth. If they are oppressed and exploited, they should stand up and resist. Jun Changshao said, You want me to rebel against the star spirit world? That's right. The demon ancestor rolled his eyes. Although the bomb had been removed and he had regained his freedom, to rebel against a top upper plane was definitely crazy. As a big shot of the wasteland, he also had ambitions. However, after living in the star spirit world for more than 10 years, the more he understood the order and strength of this plane, the less he had any fantasies of resistance. Fair rights were only in the hands of a small number of people. Even if he was free now, he still could not get rid of his identity as a corpse servant. In the strict star spirit world, he was destined to be a marginal existence. From the layout to the resurrection, the demon ancestor's actions might not be inferior to the celestial demonic emperor. However, many years of living at the bottom and being treated as a slave had gradually smoothed out the edges of his heart. Try to survive. This was the only thought in the demon ancestor's mind. That was why the sect of all times was so friendly to him that he shamelessly freeloaded on food and drinks. If it was before, even if he had to die, he would not eat that meal. You might think that this is a fantasy, Jun Changshao said. The demon ancestor said, It is a fantasy. Swoosh. Jun Changshao put the white rice on the table, then divided it into 2 halves, pushing one half to the left and the other to the right. He said, The star spirit world is like this bowl of white rice. The left side represents the nobles, and the right side represents the corpse servants. After saying that, he spread out the rice on the right side. The corpse servants have no freedom or rights. They can only be scattered all over the place. Jun Changshao paused, then kneaded the rice together and said, If someone gathers this power, is it not enough to fight against the nobles? The demon ancestor fell silent. He was not a fool. He already understood Go Sheng's intention. However, the demon ancestor shook his head and smiled bitterly. The corpse servants are controlled by the star spirit world. They are destined to be fish on the chopping board. What if someone can help them get rid of the control? Jun Changshao said meaningfully. The demon ancestor was stunned. He suddenly understood. If this person could help him remove the bomb, he could naturally help the other corpse servants. Without any restrictions, would everyone still be willing to work like a cow or a horse? Brother. Jun Changshao stood up, looked out the window with his hands behind his back, and said, Nobles, generals, ministers, what do you think? Chapter 1912. Kings, lords, generals, and ministers. After hearing these words, the demon ancestor's blood instantly burned. Although his edges and corners were gradually smoothed out in reality, he was still the ancestor of the Moang clan after all. After all, he was a man who once had a big plan. People did not die. The heart was there. Seeing the sharpness in the demon ancestor's eyes gradually returning, Jun Changshao said, The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I hope you can cooperate with me and turn it upside down. Referring to the star spirit world. In fact, when Jun Changshao removed the soul bomb in the demon ancestor's head and successfully let him live and regain his freedom, he had been discussing the plan with the higher-ups. Patriarch Ryu Sinan said, Since we know how the star spirit world controls the zombies, why don't we help them get rid of the shackles, and then use the power to overthrow this plane? Makes sense. Jun Changshao deeply agreed. If they went head-to-head, not to mention whether they could win, they would definitely pay a painful price. The zombies in the star spirit world were large in scale and lived like slaves. He could totally rescue them to fight against the star spirit world. Bastard! Xiaoji scolded angrily. Using the zombies as cannon fodder, he really has no morals. Don't laugh. He could really say that. because he stood at the highest point of the black spot. No matter how he looked at Jun Changshao, no matter what he did, he always thought that it was wrong. In fact, the star spirit world controlled so many souls and forcibly placed corpses to control them. No one should be willing. They were limited by bombs and laws and could only be cattle and horses. They could only live a life worse than death. At this time, if someone stood up, by giving freedom to raise their arms and make a call, they would not hesitate at all, even if the price was sacrifice in blood. Of course, who would carry the flag? Jun Changshao definitely could not. After all, he was a human. To mobilize the zombies in the star spirit world and encourage them to fight for freedom, it must be someone of the same kind. Therefore, the suitable candidate was undoubtedly the demon ancestor. As a result, dog leftovers came looking for him. It's very simple, Jun Changshao said. I am responsible for helping the zombies to remove the bombs. You are responsible for commanding them. TSK. The ancestral fiend said in disdain. You want me to take the lead and let the zombies be cannon fodder while you hide in the dark and reap the benefits. You can interpret it that way. Jun Changshao was very frank. That was right. He was using the zombies to overthrow the star spirit realm and reap the benefits. Although this was not a noble act, it was not a dirty thing either. If you want freedom, you have to wear bulletproof vests. Besides, Gosheng was neither Buddha nor God. Without absolute confidence to fight against the star spirit world, the zombies had to fight for their freedom and dignity on their own. All right. The demon ancestor clenched his fist and said, this ancestor agrees. Even though he knew that Jun Changshao was using him, he still decided to cooperate. In the past, he had been forcibly placed in a corpse and suffered from the crazy oppression of the star spirit realm. He had no choice. Now he just wanted to be a free and dignified big shot of the demonic tribe. Put it bluntly, in the star spirit world he was not treated as a human. He had suffered all kinds of injustice, suffered all kinds of oppression. He had had enough. He had to fight back. Follow me. Jun Changshao brought the demon ancestor to a relatively remote place at the back of the mountain. At first, this place was rather deserted, but under the cultivation of Li Qingyang and Page, it had already turned into a place similar to a military camp. Pa. Jun Changshao snapped his fingers and said, come out. Swish. 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 In an instant, black shadows rushed out from the tents in the distance and lined up neatly. There were about 100 of them. This was a group of creatures with different appearances. Their heads, shoulders, and exposed chests all had tattoos with strange numbers engraved on them. That's right. They were all zombies. In the half a month that the demon ancestor was recuperating from his injuries, Jun Changshao had gone to the star spirit world many times and saved them all. Although the numbers engraved on these people were different, there were obvious stitches on their foreheads. It could be seen that they had all undergone craniotomy. Greetings, Jun Patriarch. The zombies all knelt down on one knee in unison with the most sincere respect in their eyes. They had been zombies for a long time, living a life worse than death in the star spirit world. After being rescued to the eternal world and defusing the bomb, they definitely regarded Jun Changshao as their benefactor. In fact, except for the most evil people, the creatures in the upper universe all knew how to be grateful. Swish. Jun Changshao waved his hand and helped the zombies up. I'll say it again, he said with a serious expression. Any creature can only worship their parents. Kneeling was the custom of the star spirit world. To be exact, it was the unique custom of the zombies. When they saw someone with a higher status than them, they had to kneel. When they saw their master being controlled, they had to kneel. Therefore, after kneeling for a long time, they became the kneeling clan. Understood. Everyone said loudly. The demon ancestor muttered in his heart. He subdued a group of powerful zombies so quickly. This person has some tricks up his sleeve. Nonsense. If he didn't have any tricks up his sleeve, how could he end up like this? Thinking of this, the demon ancestor not only did not get angry out of embarrassment, but even felt a little relieved. It was not that he was not strong enough, but that his opponent was too good. He lost everything, but it was not very embarrassing. Damn. This guy really knows how to comfort himself. His name is the Demon Ancestor. A person with ambition and a plan, Jun Changxiao said. From today onwards, you must listen to his orders unconditionally. Yes. The zombies followed Gosheng's lead. They would listen to whoever he told them to, not only because of respect, but also because after the bomb in the star spirit world was defused, another bomb was installed on them. See, Little Du jumped out and roared. This bastard has no morals. Jun Changxiao could not be blamed. He needed to help the oppressed zombies, but he was afraid that some of them would rebel, so he could only control them in a gentler way so that they could work together to overthrow the star spirit world. Jun Changxiao also promised. In the future, they would definitely regain their freedom. Jun Changxiao, the demon ancestor, was tied up on the operating table. His veins bulged as he roared. We agreed to cooperate, you are shameless. Sorry. Jun Changxiao, who was standing outside, said helplessly. I was also worried that you would betray me. Pa. An anesthetic needle was injected. The demon ancestor instantly fell into a coma. When he woke up again, a bomb was installed on his body. It could be said that he had just left the wolf's den and entered the tiger's den. Slow down. Yes, you can hang it up. Under the busy disciples, a plaque with the words Avengers was slowly hung up in the hall that had just been built in the back mountain. The demon ancestor wore a custom-made Avengers uniform and sat at the head of the hall. His former sharpness had been restored, and his eyes were cold and sharp. We are waiting. The neatly arranged crowd below shouted. Greetings, Hall Master. At that moment, they were no longer zombies in the star spirit world, but Avengers in the Sect of all times. The tattoos on their bodies were not erased because they were no longer serial numbers, but code names. 9527. The leader of the Avengers. Listen up. The demon ancestor said domineeringly. We Avengers only have one mission, and that is to overthrow the star spirit world. Overthrow the star spirit world. The Avengers roared loudly, and their voices echoed between heaven and earth. Jun Changxiao, who was sitting on a weeping willow in the distance, drank a mouthful of drunken dream, looked up at the sky, and smiled. The show is about to begin. Chapter 1913. Jun Changxiao's plan was very simple. He would be the mastermind behind the scenes and secretly manipulate the Avengers to fight against the star spirit world. Even if he could not directly overthrow them, he would at least peel off a few layers of skin. Was it reliable? If it were someone else, he might not be at ease. But the leader of the Avengers was the demon ancestor, so it was very safe. This was a ruthless character who had ambition but no chance to show it. It would definitely be effective to let him fight against the star spirit world. Moreover, he had been treated inhumanely, so he must be full of anger in his heart. It had to be said. Jun Changxiao's move was very beautiful. As for how much trouble he could bring to the star spirit world, it would depend on his own ability. Master. Jun Changxiao came to the array hall and said, You must build more warships during this period of time. Don't worry about ores, I will do my best to provide them. After that, he went to the forging hall and the battle cavalry hall. All in all, using the Avengers to fight against the star spirit world was only one of the plans. After consuming a lot of the other party's energy, he still had to come forward to clean up the mess. A few days later, the demon ancestor began to act. He did not foolishly bring people to the star spirit world to cause trouble. Instead, he quietly sneaked in and used all kinds of methods to capture the servant corpses. Relying on 100 people to deal with the upper planes, his head must have been kicked by a donkey. So he had to recruit more subordinates and let them all join the resistance camp. Jun Changxiao supported him. He even set up a surgery department. All the captured servant corpses would be opened first, the original bomb inside would be removed, and a new bomb would be installed. It only took a few days. The number of Avengers soared from 100 to 500 or 600. Sun Bukong and the others were performing craniotomy for patients almost all the time in the operating room. They were so busy that they almost had no time to rest. The demon ancestor was kidnapping people. Jun Changxiao was stealing. The ores, herbs, and other resources hidden in the major cities of the star spirit world were secretly moved to the eternal world by him. These facilities were all used to manufacture mechas, warships, and equipment. In other words, the star spirit world was equivalent to a natural treasure, constantly replenishing the sect of all times. Of course, they were not fools. When the theft happened one after another, it quickly alerted the law enforcement hall. They began to investigate and inferred from the crime scene that it should be the same murderer, so they increased the vigilance. Seeing this, Jun Changshao did not dare to be too unbridled. The strange disappearance of the servant corpse also attracted the attention of the law enforcement hall. However, they didn't take it seriously at all. In fact, after confirming his disappearance, they directly announced the soul torture. In short, in the eyes of the star spirit world, servant corpses were like ants. No matter what reason they disappeared, they would not ask for the reason. They would treat it as a violation of the law and would be severely punished. Unfortunately, the law enforcement hall used torture every day. In the end, the missing zombies were safe and sound in the eternal world. They were undergoing professional training from the demon ancestor. The reason was that the bomb had been defused long ago. Speaking of training, there was a need to mention it. Back then, in order to revive and fight against the 10 great immortal sects, the demon ancestor had done his best to nurture 1,000,000 soldiers. He definitely had rich experience. It was because of this that Jun Changshao made him the leader of the Avengers. He was an ambitious man. He also had a wealth of experience in nurturing. Such a person could at least hold the situation. The demon ancestor did not let him down. After he had more and more subordinates, he not only nurtured them vigorously, but also brainwashed them vigorously. He instilled the concept of freedom and the spirit of resistance in them. When Jun Changshao was free, he would also come over to act as a lecturer. For example, freedom, freedom, freedom. Resistance, resistance, resistance. Yay, good. In terms of brainwashing, Jun Changshao and the demon ancestor were both masters. Under their indoctrination, the Avengers' hatred for the star spirit world grew day by day. In fact, it was not that they were doing something bad. The main reason was that they had been oppressed enough. After gaining freedom, they would definitely launch revenge and trample on the high and mighty aristocrats. In terms of the setting of One Piece, in the star spirit world, all creatures with status were celestial dragons. And no matter how strong or weak the servant corpse was, they were still grass that could be slaughtered by them. Today Jun Changshao and the demon ancestor did not stand up. Tomorrow, perhaps Jun Changshao and the immortal ancestor would lead them to revolt. Half a year later, the number of Avengers had increased to tens of thousands. They came from all over the star spirit world, and used to have different low identities. Now they were all brothers and sisters. Their purpose was to fight for freedom and revenge. Of course, their strength was also extraordinary. Tens of thousands of Avengers, their overall strength was at the peak of the truth-seeking realm. And there was no lack of half-step truth-seeking realm. In particular, Jun Changshao had provided them with a large number of equipment and weapons, arming them to the teeth. What's the next step? In the Vengeance Hall, Gosheng asked. In the past half a year, he had wandered all over the star spirit world. Although he had obtained a lot of martial arts resources, they were not enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. To be exact, it was nothing more than petty theft. Many resource areas were heavily guarded, and there was no chance at all. If it were any other plane, Gosheng would definitely feel guilty. Only the star spirit world did not have any burden, because this was a world that mainly killed and plundered others. You snatched others. Can't I snatch from you? The demon ancestor came to the sand table of the star spirit world that had been prepared long ago and pointed at a city. Guerrilla warfare. It was impossible to fight head-on at the moment. He had to make full use of his advantages to discuss the other party step by step. Let's do it together. Jun Changshao and the demon ancestor looked at each other, and an extremely scary smile gradually appeared on their faces. That night, the 20,000 Avengers had gathered. They were well-trained and well-equipped. One look and one could tell that they were tigers and wolves. Swish. The demon ancestor strode out of the hall. There was fire in his heart and light in his eyes. He said loudly, "This operation must be fast." "Yes." Everyone shouted. "Let's go." Swish, swish, swish. The 20,000 Avengers poured into the teleportation token and disappeared into thin air, reappearing in the star spirit world. Awo, awo. A wolf howl sounded in the distance, making the atmosphere especially gloomy. Swish, swish, swish. Under the leadership of the demon ancestor, the 20,000 Avengers flew at top speed and soon arrived at their destination, a city of decent size. Go. Swish, 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 swish. In an instant, the Avengers were no longer careful. They rushed to the city with their full cultivation. Their angry aura filled the surroundings. The cold killing intent also meant that a fierce battle was coming. Patriarch Ryu Sinan stood on the mountain peak in the distance and said with pity, "It seems a little." "Don't worry." Jun Changshao said, "I have already instructed them to focus on plundering resources after breaking into the city. They will not harm the innocent." Although the star spirit world made a living by plundering others, it did not mean that they were all bad guys. There were definitely many innocent creatures, so he would not massacre them wantonly, and would not give little Dodo any chance to slander him. "I want to be an evil person through and through, regardless of the comments and criticisms of the world." Jun Changshao looked at the firmament Dao with his hands behind his back and said helplessly, "But I can't be kind." It was rare that the system did not ridicule him, because sometimes the host's actions were very scoundrelly, but in the cruel martial arts world, there was no fault to be found. Chapter 1914. Kill. Kill. Boom. Boom. The demon ancestor led the Avengers to attack the city. All kinds of gorgeous lights shot out, dyeing the dark environment colorful. The corpse servants are rebelling. The corpse servants are rebelling. Before the city was breached, the soldiers in the city cried out in horror. For a long time, they had regarded the corpse servants as slaves. They had never thought that one day, they would encounter such a sudden situation in their sleep. Boom. Boom. The frequency of all kinds of energy bombardment increased. Because the Avengers led by the demon ancestor had launched a sudden sneak attack, they did not give the city defense forces any chance. In just an hour, they broke through the main gate and rushed in like a tide. A long period of peace. Jun Changshao stood outside and said, "Let them lose their guard." Jian Guishu said, "In just half a year, to be able to train tens of thousands of Avengers so well, that demon ancestor is quite a character." "Yes." Gu Tianxing nodded and said, "Jun Patriarch used the right person." Normally, the Avengers were brainwashed every day and preached hatred every day. They should not be able to control their anger after breaking through a city. However, after they entered, they were orderly and did not kill civilians. Instead, they went straight to the city lord's mansion. An hour later, the city lord's mansion, which represented the heart, was completely breached. The fat city lord was stepped on by the demon ancestor. "Hallmaster!" Someone roared, "Kill him!" This city lord was famous for being ruthless. Countless corpse servants came here, and were either crazily tortured or obliterated depending on their mood. Therefore, when they caught him today, they could not wait to tear him into pieces. Don't kill me, Pucci." Before he could finish, the demon ancestor's sword had already slashed down. The head that was like a big watermelon rolled out. There was still fear in his eyes. The city lord was dead. Everyone cheered. "Hang the head on the city gate," the demon ancestor said loudly. "Tell those noble star spirit world martial artists that we corpse servants are rebelling today." Yes. Soon the city lord's head was hung on the city gate. This day was destined to be recorded in history, because the Avengers who represented freedom had completely revealed their cards to the high and mighty celestial dragons. The demon ancestor who commanded this battle would also be remembered by future generations, and even be called the ancestor of freedom. Nothing to do with Go Sheng? No. He was the one behind the scenes, hiding his achievements and fame. It was daybreak. The sky had also changed. The Avengers successfully occupied Huitian City. The residents who lived here were so scared that they hid in their rooms, afraid that someone would suddenly rush in. He was worrying too much. The Avengers did not harass any innocent creatures. They only targeted the nobles with status and power. After searching for all the martial arts resources, they also took away the oppressed zombies. Retreat! With Ancestor Fiend's order, everyone quickly retreated. The purpose of this surprise attack on Huitian City was very simple. After the fight, they would snatch the resources and run away. Whoosh! Whoosh! The Avengers flew dozens of miles away from the city and disappeared into the deep mountains and forests. They held the tokens and were transmitted to the Eternal World. Awesome! After returning to the Avengers base, the demon ancestor could not hide the excitement in his eyes. After coming to the Star Spirit world for so many years, he had never been taken seriously by anyone. His life was worse than death. Today he finally stepped on that group of high and mighty aristocrats. He was in a great mood. Regrettably, he didn't massacre the entire city to maximize his enjoyment. Jun Changshao would still consider the three views and wouldn't be too cruel. The demon ancestor was different. He was a complete villain. He was an unscrupulous hero. He had no burden in slaughtering people. Unfortunately, he was pinched to death by Jun Changshao. Therefore, after breaking into Huitian City, he did not massacre the entire city. How are the casualties? The demon ancestor calmed down and immediately asked about the battle situation. After statistics, 20,000 zombies broke into the city and plundered a lot of martial arts resources. The price was the death of 500 to 600 Avengers. When the Sect of all times fought, no one died. So many cannon fodders died. Brothers and sisters. The demon ancestor walked out of the hall and said in a thunderous voice, "Fighting for freedom requires sacrifice. We have to face everything fearlessly. Only in this way can we comfort the souls of the dead in heaven. Fight for freedom. We are not afraid of sacrifice. Fight for freedom. We are not afraid of sacrifice." The Avengers roared in unison, their eyes filled with fearlessness. The power of freedom and hatred forged their iron will. Jun Changshao said in admiration. TSK. The system was speechless. Are you sure it's not brainwashing power? One by one. In the time and space secret realm, the disciples were extremely busy. After breaking into Huitian City, they brought over 100,000 zombies. With Sun Bukong as the leader, the surgeons had to remove the bombs in their brains in the shortest time possible. Time was very tight, because no one knew if the Star Spirit world would immediately punish them. Therefore, they could only place the operation room in the time and space secret realm to try to do more craniotomy. One day inside, nearly 10,000 zombies removed the bombs and regained their freedom. At the same time, they put on bulletproof vests. The so-called bulletproof vests meant that they were no longer zombies, but Avengers. However, after all, manpower was limited. The Sect of all times' medical team worked tirelessly, but they still couldn't stop the nightmare from coming. When there were still a few thousand people waiting in line, they suddenly knelt down in the secret realm, screaming miserably with ferocious expressions. Their bodies and souls seemed to be in a sea of fire or a pot of oil. What's going on? Jun Changshao hurriedly walked in. Soul torture. An Avenger who had witnessed it said in grief. They use soul torture. Jun Changshao frowned. Sure enough, the Star Spirit world was not limited by plane or distance in controlling the life and death of these zombies. Shua. Jun Changshao grabbed the wrist of a zombie and merged his spiritual sense into his sea of consciousness. He felt a terrifying power surging inside and didn't know what to do for a moment. Let me die. The zombie begged in pain. Let me die. Jun Changshao was silent. After a while, he turned around and said, "Inject anesthetic." Yes. Sun Bukong hurriedly controlled the zombie and injected anesthetic into it before it calmed down. He lay on the ground, but his thoughts and strength were still there. He squeezed out a smile with difficulty and said, Thank you. Boom, the bomb detonated and turned into flesh and blood. Boom. 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 In an extremely short period of time, the zombies who couldn't defuse the bomb all exploded. Some of them were injected with anesthetic and died peacefully, but many of them didn't have time at all. Therefore, not only did their souls dissipate, but they also suffered hellish torture. Plop. Sun Wukong knelt on the ground and clenched his fists. As a doctor, his duty was to save the dying and heal the injured. Now he could only watch as so many souls were tortured in front of him. Grief. Self-blame. Pa Jun Changshao patted him on the shoulder and said, "You've done your best." Patriarch. Sun Wukong could no longer control his emotions. Tears fell like rain as he said, "I really want to save them. There are too many creatures in the world who have experienced death." Jun Changshao comforted him. "Don't blame yourself because you didn't lend a helping hand. Because one person's strength is limited, and you can't change the overall situation." "I understand." Sun Wukong wiped the tears from the corner of his eyes. He understood. However, Jun Changshao returned to the study and was silent. In fact, he was so silent that it was a little scary. "Are you okay?" Rose of Flowers put down the tea and asked worriedly. Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and looked up at the ceiling. He said, "A plane that treats living beings like grass should do a craniotomy." Rose of Flowers heard this and knew that her husband was angry. "No." Jun Changshao's gaze gradually turned cold and fierce. He said in a gloomy tone, "I want to change its head. Change its internal organs. Change its body." Chapter 1915. A doctor had the heart of a parent. Sun Wukong's heart was in extreme pain as he watched so many souls being annihilated. Jun Changshao was the same, especially when he thought of how the servant corpse had chosen death to end the torture. He could no longer suppress his anger. "Wrong. I was wrong. What needed to be saved was not the servant corpse, but the entire star spirit world. He had to help it change its blood, flesh, and bones inside and out. There are too many dark places in the world. This is just the tip of the iceberg," the system said. "So," Jun Changshao said, "since I've encountered it, I have to change it." He came to the star spirit world for revenge, but now his mentality had changed. To put it shamelessly, Jun Changshao wanted to be a savior at this moment. He wanted to completely change the star spirit world, and even the entire universe system. "It's here." Zhang San, who was imprisoned in Tianyuan Prison Pagoda, suddenly sensed something and excitedly raised his head. The person who will change the upper universe's structure is finally here. He had this feeling before. However, it was particularly strong today, as if it was close at hand. Not only Zhang San. Many powerhouses in the upper universe also realized it, so they were more active in fighting against the Sky Devil Emperor. They didn't care who could change the upper universe's structure. They only cared about whether they could obtain luck and merit in this unprecedented change, so as to break through to a higher level, and even enter the land of eternal life. "Kid." That night, the old man from Taishan came to the study and said, "It's not enough to do craniotomy alone. We have to find a more convenient way." Because he was the supreme elder and the master in name, he usually didn't call him patriarch. "Is there a way?" Jun Changshao asked. The old man from Taishan placed a dismantled bomb on the table and said, "According to my research during this period of time, this thing contains an extremely complicated array. If it can be cracked, it might lose its effect without needing to be taken out by craniotomy." "Is that so?" Jun Changshao's eyes lit up. During the day, so many servant corpses were tortured to death. Although he couldn't stop it, he felt that there were indeed signs of array fluctuations in the other party's sea of consciousness. However, the old man from Taishan said, "It will take a lot of time to study." Jun Changshao expressed his understanding. He was the master of the eternal world, but he couldn't stop the servant corpses and could only let them disappear. It was enough to show that the formation was very profound and could ignore the space barrier between the visual world and the mortal world. "Master," Jun Changshao said, "I'll leave this matter to you. I'll do my best." The next day, the Taishan elder selected a group of disciples who had high attainments in array formations and brought all kinds of tools and facilities into the secret realm of time and space. He didn't plan to come out until he had studied the array thoroughly. Star Spirit World, Law Enforcement Hall. The upper echelon sat at a huge round table, and the atmosphere was extremely stifling. Huitian City was suddenly attacked by zombies, and the situation was extremely serious. This made them have no choice but to be serious. Everyone. The hall master of the law enforcement hall said in a deep voice, "This is definitely a premeditated rebellion." Pa, he snapped his fingers. A scene slowly appeared on the light screen in front of him. It was the scene of a large number of zombies attacking Huitian City. The devil ancestor was also clearly captured, and it was quite handsome. 9,527? After someone saw the number clearly, he frowned and said, "How is he still alive?" The upper echelons present were also stunned. The zombies who had announced to the entire star spirit world that soul punishment would be carried out were actually alive and well. This was a bit inconceivable. One thing is for sure. The hall master of the law enforcement hall said with a serious expression, "This zombie rebellion was instigated by him." "Humph," someone said disdainfully. "Instead of being a good slave, he actually wants to cause trouble. How audacious." The hall master of the law enforcement hall said in a deep voice, "The zombies in Huitian City have all been taken away by that guy. This seat is worried that they will continue to cause trouble. Use soul punishment. Let these disloyal zombies have their souls scattered." The upper echelons expressed their opinions. As soon as we received the news that Huitian City was breached, the Hall of Law Enforcement has already taken action. The hall master of the law enforcement hall frowned and said, "However, this seat is worried that they will be safe and sound like 9527. He was half right. There were indeed many zombies that were safe and sound. Everyone fell silent. The upper echelons have already known about this, and ordered the law enforcement hall to investigate thoroughly. The hall master of the law enforcement hall said, "Investigate." A bad-tempered martial artist said angrily, "We must investigate." On the same day, the law enforcement hall began to take action. However, after a few days of investigation, they still couldn't find 9527 and the large number of zombies that were taken away. They couldn't help but suspect that they might have left the star spirit world. "Don't be careless," the hall master of the law enforcement hall said. "Order all the cities to enter a state of alert." The zombies suddenly attacked Huitian City and took away a large number of martial arts resources and zombies. It was definitely premeditated, and might even appear out of nowhere. As expected. He guessed right. About a month later, the fiend ancestor led the Avengers to appear once again. With the force of a thunderbolt, they broke through another city and took away a large amount of martial arts resources, taking away nearly 10,000 zombies. Before they retreated, they even smiled at the projection array. This is a blatant provocation. Damn it. The upper echelons were all furious. The hall master of the law enforcement hall was calmer. He took out the zombies' serial numbers and compared them one by one through the light screen. In the end, he concluded that at least 80% of the people who participated in the attack were taken away from Huitian City. In other words, they were not sentenced to death. They were still alive and had become rebels. This was a big problem. No. The hall master of the law enforcement hall realized that the situation was not good. He immediately wrote a report and sent it to a higher organization, hoping to get the attention of the upper echelons. Kill. Kill. More than half a month later, the Avengers appeared in another city. Although the Star Spirit world had entered a state of alert, they were often caught off guard because they couldn't determine the specific location of the rebels. In terms of overall strength, the Avengers were definitely not as good as the Star Spirit world. However, as the base of the Eternal World, they could hide in the shadows and change places after a shot. They could concentrate all their forces to break into a certain city and then retreat safely. Quick! Quick! After returning, the members of the medical hall began to get busy. They had to race with the Grim Reaper and remove the bombs in the heads of the new zombies in the shortest time possible. Fortunately, the demon ancestor had experience. The 2 consecutive attacks on the cities of the Star Spirit world were small in scale, and there were not many zombies. It was just enough for Sun Wukong and the others to perform craniotomy in time, and to a large extent to avoid the detonation of the bombs after the law enforcement hall found out. Unfortunately, the cities were small and there were few zombies. After breaking into the cities twice, the resources obtained were not many. Jun Changshao didn't care. He just took it as training for the Avengers. In just a few months, the demon ancestor had made 3 successful attacks in a row. However, he didn't get carried away by the victory and immediately ordered a truce. To deal with an upper-class plane, one couldn't be too hasty. One had to take it slowly. Jun Changshao didn't care how the demon ancestor played. He now hoped that the Taishan old man could develop a way to crack the bombs, so that he could be more unscrupulous. Success. Half a year later, the Taishan old man walked out of the space-time secret realm excitedly. Because he was too engrossed in the research, his hair was disheveled, his beard was unkempt, and he looked extremely haggard. Buzz. In the open area of the back mountain, the flowing light formation appeared. The Taishan old man said proudly, "This is a soul isolation formation that I developed based on the internal structure of the bomb. As long as the zombies enter, their souls and bodies will be completely isolated from the outside world." Having an old man at home was like having a treasure. This sentence was specially used to describe the Taishan old man. While the medical hall was busy with the craniotomy for the zombies, he lived up to his expectations and created a great array that could isolate the soul and body. Is it okay? He needed to test it. Swish. Swish. In the dark night of the star spirit world, one figure after another sped forward like a ghost, and then stopped outside a heavily guarded city. The demon ancestor stood on a tree, looked at the moonlight, and said, "Get ready." Shwa. Shwa. Dozens of Avengers stood up from the bushes. They picked up the RPG rocket launcher and locked onto the indestructible city gate in front of them. Ka-ka. Ka-ka-ka. The other members hiding in the dark took out their fully automatic rifles or sniper rifles and skillfully loaded the bullets. The firearms were provided by Jun Changshao. High-level spirit stones were used as energy sources, allowing the originally outdated weapons to still possess powerful destructive power. Even every Avenger was equipped with a special bullet. The bullet was not stored by spirit stones, but by the power of immortal sound. TSK. The demon ancestor said, "Does this strange thing really have an unfathomable power?" As a traditional martial artist, he disdained to play tricks and believed more in his own fists. However, when they came, Jun Changshao specially instructed them to use it during the siege, and to strive for a quick battle. Only then did they agree to let the members take it out. Ka. Ka. The Avengers who were carrying the rocket launcher also loaded the cannonballs gathered by the power of immortal sound, and stood in place, waiting for the hall master to give the order to attack the city. The demon ancestor was calm. After waiting for 2 hours, in the middle of the night, he pointed at the city and shouted, "Fire!" Bam! 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 The deafening sound caused the demon ancestor's eardrums to buzz. Damn! Was there such a big commotion? There was no time for the demon ancestor to think, because he was completely shocked by the scene in his field of vision. That door! The seemingly indestructible door! Under the bombardment of dozens of cannonballs that dragged streams of light, it was directly blown into nothingness, and a huge gap was blown out. Ding ding ding. Ding ding ding. The dozens of Avengers who fired the cannonballs took more than 10 steps back before stabilizing their bodies, their faces full of shock. They had previously received the most professional training from Xiao Ziji, and were familiar with the recoil of firearms. However, the vibration caused by the special cannonballs was too exaggerated. If not for the support of their strong bodies, they would have been torn apart. The demon ancestor's mouth twitched. The equipment given by that kid was too powerful. The equipment was not very scary, but the cannonballs gathered by the power of immortal sound were terrifying. The demon ancestor quickly recovered from his shock. His veins bulged as he roared, "Kill!" Swish! Swish! Tens of thousands of Avengers charged in with AK-47s. In a world of martial arts, a group of martial artists charged in with firearms. The scene was simply too unnatural. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! The alarm in the city sounded, and the station guards rushed in from all directions. The Avengers who had already rushed in through the gap in the city gate stood in the ruins with their legs crossed, raised the AK-47s in their hands, and pulled the trigger without hesitation. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. In an instant, the bullet-emitting blue light was shot out with a trail of light behind it. In slow motion, they were densely packed like a waterfall. If there were only a few of them, the guards could still use their secret technique, repeated horizontal jumps, to dodge. Now they could only be live targets. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. The bullets hit the soldiers, piercing through their armor and bodies. In the end, they all fell to the ground. The demon ancestor who witnessed this scene was deeply shocked again. The strength of these guards was not bad, and their equipment was also very good. Under normal circumstances, the energy gathered by the members' martial arts might not be able to penetrate them easily, but they were all killed. Boom. At this moment, there was an explosion on the main street of the city. The demon ancestor hurriedly looked over and saw that the dust had dispersed, and there was a huge crater in the ground. Hundreds of soldiers appeared around it, and they were all dead. Swish. He hurriedly looked up at the city wall. Under the moonlight, Xiao Ziji carried a smoking rocket launcher, a cigar hanging in his mouth, and the cloak behind him rustled. Jun Changshao decided to give the Star Spirit World a makeover, so when the demon ancestor attacked the military fortress, he sent out the core disciples of the sect of all times. Kill, kill, kill. Kill, kill, kill. On another street in the city, the soldiers rushed over like a flood. However, they soon stopped. In their field of vision, at the corner of the street, a monk in a kasaya put his palms together and said, "Lay down the butcher's knife and become a Buddha on the spot." The soldiers rushed to support the front line, so they couldn't stop. They gathered their strength on their swords and rushed over. Dunan shook his head helplessly, then waved his sleeves and said, "Buddha is merciful." Whoosh whoosh. The golden Buddha's light erupted behind him, gradually condensing into a benevolent Dharma idol, and then it turned into 8 palms, carrying a powerful force as they rushed toward the soldiers. Bang bang bang. Bang bang bang. Dunan put his palms together and strolled leisurely on the street. The Dharma idol behind him was like a bulldozer, blasting the soldiers who rushed over in all directions as if they were garbage. Because the power was too strong, their souls flew to the next heaven on the spot. Although Buddha is merciful, his fists can transcend souls. The corner of the demon ancestor's mouth twitched. How could a Buddhist be so decisive in killing? Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, the corner of his eyes swept across another street. The airtight sword energy interweaved into a gorgeous picture, until it gradually disappeared. The soldiers who rushed out were all still. Clang standing opposite, Zhou Hong put his sword into the sheath and then continued to stand proudly. Plop. Plop. With that, 100 soldiers fell to the ground. Similar scenes were playing out in other places. In short, Jun Changshao sent out a large number of elite disciples, including Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and Yi Xingqian, to help the Avengers stabilize the situation, so that they could smoothly take down this city. Oh, Yi Xingqian was not here. At this point, the author took off his glasses and gently wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes. He missed the cold, proud, and a little cute second male lead. Cry. A certain reader first wiped his nose with a tissue, then wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes, and said with a grin, "Cry for me." It was dawn. An important military base in the Star Spiritual World had fallen. In this battle, only a few thousand of the 50,000 guards escaped. When the experts of the law enforcement hall rushed over, they could only stomp their feet in anger when they saw the collapsed city walls, the corpses everywhere, and the empty city lord mansion. Execute. The hallmaster of the law enforcement hall roared. Buzz. Buzz. The formation representing the soul punishment appeared, and the hundreds of thousands of corpse servants who had disappeared in the city were punished. It had only been 10 minutes since the demon ancestor broke into the city and looted the resources. With the ability of Sun Bukong and others, it was impossible to perform craniotomy for them in such a short time, so the tragedy probably did not happen. Eternal World. Soul Isolating Formation. When the law enforcement hall punished the missing corpse servants, energy invisible to the naked eye tried to break through the flowing light barrier, but they were always rejected. They were unwilling to give up, so they used violence to break through. In the end, Only insignificant fluctuations were caused when they hit the barrier. Haha. The Taishan elder laughed with his hands on his hips, successfully isolated the connection between the bomb and the outside world. Amazing! Jun Changshao immediately gave him a thumbs up. When it came to studying strange things, he was still the best. Thud. Thud. Time passed slowly, and the corpse servants who had defused the bomb walked out of the formation. Not only did they escape punishment, but they also became members of the Avengers. There is such a formation. Jun Changshao sat in the main hall, crossed his legs and said, I must save all the corpse servants and let them fight for freedom. Chapter 1916. After the zombies entered the soul isolation array, their souls and bodies would be temporarily separated and completely cut off from the outside world. In this way, even if the astral spirit realm executed them, they would not be harmed. Of course, the array was only a temporary suppression. Whether the zombies could regain their freedom depended on Sun Bukong and the others. So they were very busy, so busy that they had to perform craniotomy for patients in the soul isolation array for several days. When they were tired or sleepy, they would lie on the ground for a while. Thank you. After each zombie successfully removed the bomb, they would express their gratitude to all the medical staff. You're welcome. This is what we should do. Every time they heard the patient's gratitude, Sun Bukong and the others would always show a bright smile, and their fatigue seemed to disappear. Jun Changshao, who was standing in the distance, said seriously, I salute your professionalism and attitude, your efforts and your selfless dedication. Taking down the astral spirit realm's military base not only gave them a large number of zombies, but also a lot of martial arts resources and many scientific research results. This was not. The Taishan elder and Fan Yezi were already immersed in it, and could not extricate themselves. In order to master the advanced array and advanced forging of the astral spirit realm as soon as possible, the two brothers had already forgotten to eat and sleep. I see. I finally understand. There was always something to learn. This saying was not wrong at all. The Taishan elder and Fan Yezi had a new understanding of array and forging through reading about the astral spirit realm, and even began to modify the mech and equipment. The biggest improvement was that the core CPU of the Diablo had finally been upgraded from 14 Gosheng to 12 Gosheng, with better performance and better cooling. The Taishan elder patted his chest and said, the new generation Diablo's performance improvement is definitely more than 50%. Only 50%? Jun Changshao was not satisfied. In his opinion, the new mech must be improved by 200%. Otherwise it would be like squeezing toothpaste. There's no other way. The Taishan elder said helplessly. This is already the limit. The 50% performance improvement of the new mech came from better materials, better array technology, and better spirit stone resources. But if they were to improve it, the effect would be minimal, unless there was a better energy source. That was it. The Star Spirit Realm spirit stones were already of the highest standard. Then go and use the power of the celestial music. Jun Changshao said, let's unleash the full potential of this power. The old Taishan man rolled his eyes. It was easy for this fellow to say that. Unleashing the power of the celestial music required technical support and time to research. Back to the Star Spirit world. The demon ancestor led a group of people to attack an important military base, causing the entire plane to explode. One had to know that because of the previous successive attacks, all the major cities had entered a state of alert, not to mention the cities that were heavily guarded. In the end, they were still swept away by them. Hall Master. In the main hall of the law enforcement hall, an old man said with an ugly expression, I'm afraid this is not a simple rebellion. Today, they dared to launch a sneak attack on Linhua City. Tomorrow, they might even dare to launch a sneak attack on the state capital. One of the higher-ups said worriedly. The Star Spirit world was also divided into states, and the main city of each state was called a state capital. The higher-ups have already taken action. The hall master of the law enforcement hall said with a solemn expression, they should be sending someone here soon. Kikik. Suddenly a strange laughter sounded in their ears. I'm already here. Who? Everyone hurriedly got up and looked around vigilantly, but they did not see anything. Could it be? The hall master of the law enforcement hall thought of something and said in shock, "The higher-up sent Lord Ian?" Little guy. Suddenly, a sinister voice sounded in their ears again. "You guessed right. As a reward for your recent crime of not doing well." The hall master of the law enforcement hall stood stiffly on the spot, because a sharp dagger appeared out of thin air at his neck and slowly moved away. Buzz. The space behind him distorted slightly, and a wretched middle-aged man appeared. He first grinned, then licked the blade with his tongue. Unfortunately, it was not poisonous, otherwise it would be a masterpiece. This person did not emit any aura, as if he appeared out of thin air. It was too strange. The hall master of the law enforcement hall swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Just now he could feel the chill of the dagger, and he could feel that he had walked out of the gates of hell. Swish. He turned around and knelt down. The hall master of the law enforcement hall, Yang Shihong, greets the Honorable Lord Ian. Plop. In an instant, the higher-ups present all knelt down, and they were so frightened that they did not even dare to raise their heads. The powerhouses who could serve in the law enforcement hall all had first-class VIP status. Only the SVP, which was above the VIP, could make them kneel down. The so-called SVIP referred to the highest level of the star spirit world. Ian. He was one of the higher-ups. He had the ability that men dreamed of, which was to master the spirit of concealment. He could turn invisible anytime and anywhere, and he could come and go without a trace. As for his strength, he was definitely not weaker than the ruins of Sword Saint. As a higher-up of the star spirit world, he definitely had to have a reputation. With immediate effect, Ian sat casually on the conference table, crossed his arms and said, "I will command the law enforcement hall." "Yes," everyone shouted in unison. "Present the recent information about the Servant Corps rebellion." Ian did not care about the situation at all, and lay on the conference table, as if he was lying on his own brick bed. Everyone was speechless. It was rumored that Lord Ian was unrestrained and unrestrained. Now that they had seen him, he really lived up to his reputation. The higher-ups of the law enforcement hall acted one after another, and presented all the information about the Servant Corps rebellion. After Ian analyzed them one by one, he said with a lazy gaze, "In other words, the missing servant corpses are not dead, and they all participated in the rebellion." "Yes, Lord Ian. It's not a big problem." Ian stretched and said, "The best way to prevent the Servant Corps rebellion is to put all the servant corpses in the star spirit world under the soul torture." Ha! The people of the law enforcement hall were all dumbfounded. Indeed. From the looks of it, all the missing servant corpses eventually became the culprits of the star spirit world. If they did not want them to continue to be the accomplice of the villain, killing them in advance could be considered to prevent future trouble. However, the law enforcement hall only thought about it, and did not dare to put it into action. Because the servant corpses in the star spirit world had existed for hundreds of thousands of years, and were deeply rooted. All walks of life needed them. Directly erasing them would paralyze the entire plane. "Can't I?" Ian asked. No one dared to say it, but in their hearts they said, "My Lord Ian, your idea is too unrealistic." Forget it, forget it." Ian jumped down from the table, and walked to the map of the star spirit world hanging in front. He circled the cities that the demon ancestor had attacked. After careful analysis, he held his chin and said, "Don't you think that the cities they attacked have a pattern?" Everyone gathered around. From the labels between the cities, it was obviously a 5-pointed star. No, it was still at the 4 corners for the time being. Because the demon ancestor had only attacked 4 cities for the time being. Lord Ian slapped a city on the map, which was the last corner, and said with a cold gaze, "Mobilize all the forces of the law enforcement hall and the surrounding forces of this city. We will catch all these small fishes in one fell swoop tonight. My son has to go to kindergarten. Today, I have to go through all the enrollment procedures. I originally planned to send him after the new year, but because of the epidemic, it was delayed for half a year. Sigh, when I think of sending him to kindergarten tomorrow. I am so excited that I want to sing." The little divine beast has finally left his parents' embrace to torture his little classmates and teachers. Chapter 1917. Sect of All Times. Jun Changshao sat in the Avengers Hall, carefully listening to the demon ancestors' next plan. Wait. When the other party talked about the cities they were going to attack, he suddenly interrupted. You seem to have a pattern. The demon ancestor was puzzled. What pattern? Jun Changshao came to the sand table and pointed at the 4 cities that had been attacked, then pointed at the 5th city, saying, Don't you think it looks like a pentagram when connected? This, the demon ancestor carefully observed and said in surprise, It really does look like it. Jun Changshao was speechless. From this guy's expression, it seemed that he had chosen the cities as he pleased, coincidentally giving off a sense of pattern. The demon ancestor's choice of cities was strictly calculated. As for the pentagram, that was purely an accident. If Go Sheng had not pointed it out, he would not have noticed it himself. What do you mean? It's too obvious. Let's change cities. Jun Changshao was worried that the star spirit world would realize this pattern and set a trap in the 5th city in advance, waiting for everyone to walk into the trap. He guessed right. Lord Yin had already led the law enforcement hall over. According to the pentagram pattern that was inadvertently formed, he vowed to catch all the rebels in one fell swoop. All right, the demon ancestor said. Then let's change. Jun Changshao pointed at a city on the sand table that was of a decent size, saying, How about attacking this one? The demon ancestor's expression was a little dazed. There was no other reason. The city that Jun Changshao had chosen was called Great Heaven City. There were a total of 10 states in the star spirit world, and Great Heaven City was the main city of one of the 10 states. Attacking a state's main city was a little exaggerated. If we attack a state's main city, it will definitely alarm the higher-ups of the star spirit world, the demon ancestor said worriedly. After taking down an important military base, they would obtain a lot of martial arts resources and zombies. But in the end, they did not have the courage to attack a state's main city. After all, the level was too high. At least they would need to develop for a while. Do you think the higher-ups of the star spirit world will not be alarmed after attacking 4 times in a row? Jun Changshao asked. The demon ancestor was silent. As long as the other party wasn't an idiot, they definitely wouldn't be able to sit still. Actually, Jun Changshao said, now that things have developed to this point, it doesn't matter whether the astral spirit world is alarmed or not. All we can do is fight them to the end. Fight to the death, Fiend Ancestor said through gritted teeth. All these years he had been struggling at death's door like a slave, and he had long since accumulated boundless rage. Now that he had the ability to contend against him, he had to toy with him to death. Me, Fiend Ancestor. He was not to be trifled with. When it came to the star spirit realm, he had nowhere to vent his viciousness. When it came to Jun Changshao, sorry, he was as cowardly as a dog. I've decided. Jun Changshao slapped his thigh and said, Let's attack this provincial capital. Pung pung pung. In the workshop of the Foundry Hall, brand new equipment and weapons modified by Fan Yezi with the technology provided by the Astral Soul Realm were being formed one after another. Ka. In the workshop of the Hall of Arrays, the new Diablo models were being assembled one after another. Without a doubt, the resources obtained from plundering a military base had allowed the Sect of All Times equipment and mechas to be upgraded to a new level. Jun Changshao put on the new mecha and clenched his fingers tightly. He said in satisfaction, Not bad. Patriarch. Fan Yezi smiled. With the current level of mecha, even if a revolving core realm martial artist were to wear it, they would not be weaker than a lower-level truth-seeking realm martial artist. Oh, Jun Changshao was surprised. That strong? The difference between the revolving core realm and the truth-seeking realm was an entire realm, and it was a bit exaggerated to be able to make up for it with equipment alone. What about the weapons? How's the research going? Fan Yezi took out a weapon that looked like a fully automatic rifle from his space ring and placed it on the table. He smiled and said, I modified this based on the AK-47. Jun Changshao's mouth twitched slightly. The hall master of the Sect of All Times Foundry Hall did not study sabers, spears, swords, and halberds, but studied firearms instead. The system said, "It's all because of you. I've sinned." Jun Changshao said loudly, "Test the gun." Yes. Xiao Ziji suddenly appeared in front of him and picked up the new rifle. After loading the bullets, he walked out of the factory, aimed at a mountain peak 10,000 feet away, and pulled the trigger decisively. Jingjiu's driving points were maxed out. In terms of shooting, Xiao Ziji was also maxed out. Bang! There was a loud bang, like the sound of a cannon. In slow motion, the muzzle of the gun spewed flames, and the bullet condensed from high-level spirit stones shot out. With Xiao Ziji as the center, an energy fluctuation was generated, and layers of dust were stirred up. He remembered that when he first used this kind of firearm, because he could not bear the recoil, he was either Li Tianshan or himself. Now he was as steady as Mount Tai, and was no longer the young man from before. Boom! The bullet pierced through and directly flattened the mountain peak. It was a bit exaggerated that a rifle could cause such damage. Not bad. Jun Changshao nodded in satisfaction and ordered, "Mass-produce this type of weapon as soon as possible, and let every Avenger have one." "No problem." Fan Yezi smiled. However, after Jun Changshao left, he came back to his senses and roared, "There are so many Avenger. How long do I have to make them?" Patriarch Li Luoqiu came to the main hall and said, "We've saved a few thousand more corpses, and they've been handed over to the medical hall for rescue." The demon ancestor needed more Avenger to join in and fight against the entire astral spirit world. However, there was still risk in attacking cities to plunder, so Jun Changshao ordered the Drizzle Hall to sneak into the major cities when they were free and save the corpses with decent strength. Is this saving? The system was speechless. This is robbing, okay. The Drizzle Hall's efficiency was still very high. Almost every few days they would rob, save hundreds to thousands of corpses, so that they could get rid of the slave label and gloriously become Avenger. Half a year. A whole half a year. The demon ancestor did not take action. He was waiting for Jun Changshao's orders to attack a prefecture's capital. To be honest, the demon ancestor was under a lot of pressure now. A city, there must be many experts inside. If he were to lead a group of people to attack, he might not be able to return. Don't worry, Jun Changshao said. I don't do things that I'm not confident in. The demon ancestor said, when do we make our move? Tonight. Ah, that night. The entire sect of all times was brightly lit, and all the halls were actively preparing. Quick, quick. On the mountain where the war cavalry hall was located, disciples in full armor ran out and stood neatly on the training field. Behind them were newly modified Diablo. The scene was very grand. Ta. In the Spirit Beast Hall's main hall, the Purple King shook his head and walked out. At the same time, he did not forget to take off his school uniform, revealing his strong muscles and sexy red underwear. The camera turned to the training field. Elder Nyo and the other higher-ups of the hall stood neatly. Their eyes flashed with strong fighting spirit. All of them were naked and wearing underwear. They just received the news. There was going to be an important operation soon. Since that was the case, why didn't the Spirit Beast Hall wear any clothes? There was no other reason. They were afraid that their uniforms would be damaged during the fight, and Yuan Gongzi would take the opportunity to deduct their beast cores. All the halls were actively preparing. They were either activating their armor, or wearing their battle armor. Only the group of demonic beasts on the Spirit Beast Peak were naked. That scene was extremely unnatural. The Patriarch said. Z said solemnly, this time, we will be attacking the city of the Star Spirit Domain. If our Spirit Beast Hall performs well, the beast cores will be multiplied next month. All the beasts' eyes lit up. So, Z roared. For this battle, all of you have to do your best for this king. In this battle, we have to make the Spirit Beast Hall famous. Yes. All the beasts roared, and their voices shook the surroundings. Paji, the beast word on the signboard couldn't withstand the impact and instantly fell off. At this moment, Jun Changshao's voice came through the loudspeaker. All troops attack! Swish, swish, swish. Swish. In just an instant, all the disciples of the sect of all times that were prepared at the various halls vanished. When the camera cut to the Star Spirit Domain and the Great Sky City, the densely packed space battleships, mechas, and soldiers had completely surrounded the main city. Damn it! The Devil Ancestor's eyes almost popped out. This lineup, this momentum, it was simply too powerful. Chapter 1918. The demon ancestor worked for Jun Changshao and did not join the sect of all times. Although he was in the sect, he was still restricted to the back mountain, so he did not know much about the sect's strength. Now, today, he completely understood. In the sky, there were thousands of space battleships, tens of thousands of tall mechas, and the devil army that he had once nurtured surrounded Great Heaven City. This formation could be described as the sky collapsing and the earth sinking. The demon ancestor was dumbfounded. A moment later, a bitter smile appeared on his face. Although he was pushed to the front by Jun Changshao to command the Avengers to fight against the Star Spirit world, he still had hatred in his heart. He dreamed that one day, he would be able to trample Jun Changshao and his sect of all times under his feet. Everyone. The demon ancestor turned his head and looked at you outside the screen. He said sorrowfully, "Do I still have hope?" No. It was already gone. Anyone who had been dealt with by Jun Changshao, regardless of whether they were on the right or wrong side, would not have the possibility of making a comeback. Therefore, the demon ancestor's current fate was to accept his fate. Since he couldn't take revenge, he might as well vent all his resentment on someone else. Ooh. The demon ancestor gathered power in his hands and roared, "Kill!" At first, he was quite worried about whether he could take down the state capital of the Star Spirit world. Now that the sect of all times had attacked with all their might, the aura that erupted shook heaven and earth. Naturally, there was nothing to worry about. Kill! Kill! The Avengers roared in anger. Unlike the demon ancestor who still secretly hated Jun Changshao, these rescued zombies only hated the Star Spirit world, and the aristocrats who controlled life and death. Therefore, they could not wait to rush into the city and kill. However, this time, they were not needed to attack the state capital. Since Jun Changshao had chosen to mobilize the entire sect, it meant that he was not willing to be the mastermind behind the scenes, and was preparing to officially participate in the war. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! In Great Heaven City, the alarm rang. Xiao xiao xiao. One by one, the aristocrats with enhanced strength gathered on the city tower. When they saw that the city was surrounded inside and out, their expressions immediately became interesting. Being surrounded by others in their own territory, what was going on? Quickly contact the law enforcement hall and Lord Yin. The city lord of Datian City immediately ordered. He was still relatively calm and did not show any signs of panic. The reason was simple. The city was impregnable. Even if it was surrounded, it should be able to hold on until reinforcements arrived. City Lord, the subordinate replied, "I've already contacted the law enforcement hall. They'll probably arrive in half an hour." An hour? The city lord of Datian City smiled and said, "It's not a big problem." Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. "Emph," a certain expert said coldly. "A group of slaves actually dares to resist? They must be tired of living." There was no denying it. The scale of the invading army was huge, and their battle formation was terrifying. However, our great heavenly city's defenses are extremely high, and our reinforcements can arrive within an hour. Why would we be afraid of you? Seeing the fearless expressions on their faces, Jun Changshao, who was sitting in the cockpit, took a sip of his cappuccino. Then he gently placed the cup on the tray and said calmly, "Human cannon level 1 ready." Buzz. Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, cannons appeared at the bottom of the space battleships hovering around him. Powerful energy converged and gradually formed a colorful light. Human cannon level 2 ready. Crack. 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 Tens of thousands of Diablo soldiers lined up on both sides raised their arms. Gatling-like cannons extended from their palms. Don't ask. Ask was the joint research of the Taishan elder and Fan Yezi. Huff. Huff. The wind howled. The atmosphere was tense. Seeing this, the city lord of Datian City's expression changed slightly. He immediately shouted, "Strengthen the city protection array." Buzz. Tens of thousands of array masters scattered in every corner of the city worked together. The defense array hidden in the dark was activated and shone brightly. It covered the entire city like an eggshell. As the array was strengthened, everyone felt safer. They looked at the battleships and mechas outside and laughed even more mockingly. Damn. The villains are too brainless. Otherwise, the city was completely surrounded. It was impossible to go out and fight. So they could only stand on the city tower and look down on them strategically. In the distance, the ancient fleet and mechas were ready to go. Datian City, one of the top 10 cities in the Star Spirit realm, had its defenses fully activated. The scene was grand. After only a few seconds, Jun Changshao waved his hand and said, "Break the city." Boom. 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 In an instant, the cannons in the bottom of the battleship and the cannon barrels in the mecha's palms shot out all kinds of lights. Cannonballs and bullets pierced through the void and burst out. The demon ancestor hurriedly covered his ears. His eyes were filled with shock. The commotion was too big. Swish. Swish. In the far west, outside a city that the demon ancestor was about to attack, the elites of the law enforcement hall and hundreds of thousands of soldiers were moving quickly. Damn it. The leader, Lord Yin, said angrily. We were fooled. He had grasped the attacking pattern of the rebels and had set up many traps outside the city. As soon as the rebels appeared, he would catch them all in one fell swoop. In the end, after waiting for a long time, he received news that Datian City was under attack. Boom. 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 On the way, there were explosions. Yin immediately determined that the sound came from Datian City. He shouted, "Full speed ahead." Lord Yin. The law enforcement hall master followed closely behind. Datian City's defense is extremely high. Those rebels will need time to break through. If we rush over, we can take the opportunity to catch them all in one fell swoop. That's right. Yin agreed. I have such a plan. Humph. One of the law enforcement hall's upper echelons sneered. These slaves are crazy. How dare they attack our state capital? Listen up. Yin said loudly. When we reach Datian City, we can't let any of the rebels go. We must kill them all. The servant corps system had existed for many years, but now they dared to rebel. They must be dealt a fatal blow as a warning to others. Yes. Everyone shouted. Although they were shouting loudly now, they were all dumbfounded when they arrived at the scene. Datian City, one of the top 10 state capitals in the astral spirit realm, had been breached. The indestructible city walls were shattered into nothingness, and the city protection formation was gone. The city lord and most of the nobles were tied up and kneeling on the city tower. From the frequency of their bodies trembling, they seemed to be terrified. Behind them, the disciples of the sect of all times were holding firearms, and the muzzles were pointed at the back of their heads. Sorry. Jun Changshao sat in front of the relatively intact city tower with his legs crossed and a cigar in his hand. He smiled and said, "You're 59 minutes late." Lord Yin's expression was extremely ugly. When he received Datian City's call for help, he replied that he would arrive in an hour. He was very punctual. Not a second late. However, when the message was sent, Datian City was breached by the sect of all times in just a minute. The so-called city protection formation, which was said to be impregnable, was like a piece of paper that could be broken with a single poke. Kill. Yin said in a deep voice, "Kill them all." He was furious. He wanted to take back Datian City. He wanted these rebels to be executed. Kill. 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 The law enforcement hall and the elite soldiers sent over rushed toward the state capital like a wave. However, what awaited them were fully automatic rifles, sniper rifles, and RPG rocket launchers. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "Since our sect of all times has taken down this city, we don't intend to give it up." The demon ancestor almost fell to the ground. He had always thought that this attack on the state capital would be the same as before, mainly to plunder resources and servant corps. He did not expect that guy to not plan to leave after taking down the city. He planned to take over the city. Chapter 1919. Why did Jun Changshao want the entire army to attack? It was because he wanted to take down Datian City, and was not going to leave. As he grew stronger and stronger, he did not plan to play tricks anymore. Instead, he decided to occupy a city with a good geographical location, and use it as a stronghold to fight the astral world head-on. State capital. It was very suitable. Some people would ask, what if you can't win? Very simple, just flee. Anyway, it was not a city that he spent manpower and resources to build. He was just using it as a foothold. If the other party wanted to take it back, then he would give it to them. This guy, after knowing Jun Changxiao's intention, the demon ancestor said with admiration, his vision is bigger than mine. After becoming the leader of the Avengers, he had always emphasized guerrilla warfare. Even though he had recruited many zombies, he still did not dare to snipe at the astral world. On the other hand, Jun Changxiao was really daring. Boom. Boom. While he was thinking, the sound of cannons entered his ears. Turning around, the scene in front of him seemed to have entered a slow-motion state. The disciples of the Sect of all times held firearms in their hands, and stood on the broken city wall. They fired wildly at the astral world soldiers charging at them. Bullets and cannonballs pierced through the void and pierced through bodies, intertwining with brilliant colors. The demon ancestor slowly closed his eyes, and listened to the sound of cannons and gunshots. His soul seemed to have been sublimated, and the corner of his mouth was filled with a smile. Listen. How beautiful the sound was. Swoosh. Suddenly, the demon ancestor rushed over. He fought side by side with the disciples of the Sect of all times, and took out an AK-47 from his space ring. He had obtained this weapon long ago. He used to disdain using it, but today he was infected. Ah. Da-da-da. The demon ancestor fired at the crowd. Every time he fired a bullet, his expression gradually became ferocious, excited, and goshung. A villain-level powerhouse stood in front of the broken city wall and fired wildly with his gun. It was obvious that he had integrated into the rhythm of the Sect of all times. He did not use secret techniques or internal energy when fighting. He only relied on firearms. Jun Changxiao's mouth showed a gratified and satisfied smile. Playing with guns. It was a man's nature. The demon ancestor was no exception. Kill. The Avengers also joined the battle. They raised all kinds of firearms and rushed to the city wall, madly pulling the trigger. The scene was like the survivors of the apocalypse, in order to protect the only pure land, madly using all kinds of firearms to fight the zombies. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. The Star Spirit World army surged forward like a tide, and the density of the bullets caused the charging soldiers to fall one after another. Of course. With the lethality of firearms, it was impossible to kill a person with one shot. In a situation where a large number of soldiers were attacking a city, it was common for them to miss out on a lot of soldiers, or even be unable to suppress them at all. Therefore, the distance between the two sides was getting closer and closer. It seemed like the time for a bayonet fight was coming. Boom! Right at this moment, the ear-shattering sound of cannons rang out from the highest point in the city. A huge stream of light that was visible to the naked eye flew over in an arc before landing in the midst of the Star Spirit World soldiers, causing a huge explosion. Boom! White light blinded the titanium alloy eyes. Mushroom clouds slowly rose into the sky, and dust filled the air, covering the sky and the sun. Ding ding ding. Demon Ancestor was forced back a few steps. He was so shocked that he almost fell to the ground. In front of them, the tens of thousands of Star Elf soldiers that were originally charging down had already turned into ashes. After the dust had settled, a pit that was thousands of feet deep appeared. This demon ancestor turned his head with difficulty and saw Xiao Ziji standing proudly on the sentry tower. Next to him was a smoking tube. Behind him stood Li Tian and the others. They had their hands on each other's backs, and the residual special energy had not completely dissipated. The field cannon combined with the power of the heavenly sound was very explosive. Not only did the cannon blast stun the ancestral fiend, but it also stunned the charging astral soul world soldiers. They truly felt the horror as they stopped their charge and retreated in horror. In front of them, the huge pit was like a lightning pool, and no one dared to take half a step forward. Sigh. Jun Changxiao leaned on the chair and stretched. Being invincible is so lonely. Jian Guixiu, who was standing at the side, twitched his mouth. Although this guy was very pretentious, the energy released by the special device was really terrifying. If it were to happen a few more times, the hundreds of thousands of enemy soldiers outside the city would be turned into ashes. Whoosh! Suddenly, a faint sound of wind rang in their ears. Gu Tianxing and the upper echelons of the sect of all times did not notice it at all, but Jian Guixiu did. His expression changed. Jun Patriarch little. Boom! Before he could finish, the area where Jun Changxiao was suddenly exploded, and the entire city tower collapsed instantly. Cough, cough, cough. Everyone staggered as they tried to stand up. Thump, thump, thump. In the dust-filled area, Jun Changxiao staggered back. After stabilizing his body with difficulty, he looked inside with a serious expression. Kikik. A figure gradually emerged from the dust. Qing Yarao stood sideways and laughed strangely. Your reaction is quite fast. Jian Guixiu and the others were vigilant and secretly shocked. This guy seemed to be the leader of the Star Spirit world. He was just outside the city commanding soldiers to attack the city. When did he sneak in quietly? Ding. Side quest triggered. A notification sounded in Jun Changxiao's ears. He immediately opened the mission panel. The content was get rid of the upper echelons of the Star Spirit world, who have the spirit of concealment, and can hide between heaven and earth. Damn it! The system roared. To write the other party's ability so clearly, the spoiler is too crazy. Spirit of concealment? Jun Changxiao shook his arm and said, no wonder he could get close without anyone noticing. To be honest, he was envious. The ability to become invisible was something that every man had dreamed of, and Gosheng was no exception. If he could master this kind of spirit seed, where in the world could he not go? Yin's body gradually materialized. He took out a book and said while flipping through it, inciting others to rebel is a capital offense. Destroying city buildings is a capital offense. He listed dozens of crimes one after another, and the result was all death. Sorry. Jun Changxiao shrugged his shoulders and said, the laws of the Star Spirit world can't control me. Yin closed the book and said with a smile, to add, any living thing that comes to the Star Spirit world has to abide by the rules of the plane. What if you don't confess? It doesn't matter, because it's all death. Jun Changxiao laughed, laughing at the other party's naivety. That's all I have to say. Yin lowered his head and walked over step by step saying, sorry for my rudeness. Whoosh, suddenly he disappeared. Boom. Gu Tianxing and the others didn't see anything. They only saw Jun Changxiao being blasted out of the ruins of the city tower, and then in a rather sorry state, he stabilized himself in the air outside the city. Boom boom. Boom boom boom. The sound of punches and kicks could be heard in the air, but no one could be seen. Jun Changxiao, on the other hand, was flying left and right in a sorry state. He was beaten to the point where he couldn't distinguish between north and south. This is troublesome. Jian Guixiu frowned. The Star Spirit world expert was completely one with heaven and earth. With his spiritual sense, he couldn't accurately detect his location. Damn it. Jun Changxiao stabilized himself in the air, rubbing his face that had been hit several times, and his eyes gradually filled with anger. You can become invisible, you're awesome. But, can you not hit my face? Kid. At this time, Yin's body gradually appeared in the air. Because he was still in a half-invisible state, he looked illusory and illusory. He could be completely invisible when fighting, but he had to be half-invisible when talking. Otherwise, the cartoonist could openly slack off and just draw Gosheng fighting with the air. Chapter 1920. The strength of the spirit of concealment was that it could allow the user to completely enter a state of concealment. During this period, there would be no aura released, as if it was really one with heaven and earth. As a cheater, Jun Changxiao's spiritual sense was strong. There was no need to explain. In the process of being beaten up just now, he did not catch the opponent at all. Fortunately, the opponent only hit his face, so Go Sheng was not hurt. Not only him. Jian Guixiu was the same. Being able to feel a trace of wind just now was also a deliberate flaw by Yin. Otherwise, even if his face was close to his face, it would be impossible to be discovered. This spirit of concealment was really a little tricky. Jun Changshao covered his face and said to himself, how should I deal with him? If he couldn't beat him, he could escape. But now that there was a side mission, for the reward for the reputation, he had to fight to the end. Unsettled. The system said, refresh the store. Jun Changshao rolled his eyes. At this juncture, he still did not forget to promote. He was really dedicated to his job. However, counting the time, it seemed that he had not refreshed the store for a long time. Since the collapse of the contribution point. Since the VIP could only refresh at a fixed time, Jun Changshao was too lazy to open the store, because nothing good would come out if he was unlucky. There was another reason. Equipment, mecha, and other things could be made in the sect. The store had changed from a timely help to the current icing on the cake. At this time, Yin laughed strangely and said, are you desperate now? Jun Changshao said, what kind of hero is hiding in the dark? If you have the ability, fight with me openly. Boom, as soon as his voice fell, his whole body was instantly sent flying. Yin stood in the area where he was just now in a semi-concealed state, tilting his head and said, in my eyes, being open is equivalent to hiding in the dark. If you are not convinced, you can also hide. There is nothing wrong with this. The system said. The other party had the function of invisibility, which was a reflection of his strength. If he abandoned it during a battle, his brain must have been kicked by a donkey. Okay. Jun Changshao stabilized in midair, rubbed the shoulder that was kicked, and said, since you like to hide, then continue to hide. Boom. 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 Yin launched another attack. Jun Changshao was in a state of complete concealment, and did not reveal any aura, so he could only passively take the beating, his body swaying in the air. To tell the truth, ever since he transmigrated, Go Sheng had never been in such a sorry state. Not to mention that he was beaten to the point where he could not retaliate. He could not even find the person who beat him up. Aggrieved. It was too fucking frustrating. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. In midair, Jun Changshao swayed to his heart's content. In just a short while he had been beaten black and blue. Being beaten was very satisfying. Yin still did not understand his opponent. He thought that the best way to humiliate his opponent was to slap his opponent's face. But what was the truth? Go Sheng could be weak in any part of his body, but he was afraid of pain, so he put all his defensive points on his face. It was indeed swollen, but it didn't hurt. Yin was in a semi-concealed state. He waved his hand and said, I've slapped many people's faces, but I've never met such a thick one. My hand is numb. Really? Jun Changshao wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and smiled indifferently. You're so thick-skinned. It's meaningless to humiliate you, so? Yin's body gradually disappeared and he said in a cold voice, Go to hell. Whoosh, the air trembled, and killing intent filled the air. This was killing intent. Jun Changshao closed his eyes, as if he was listening to the whole world with his heart, as if he could capture the other's every move. When he approached, he suddenly waved his hand and said, Preservation of all things. Hula. A layer of plastic wrap appeared in front of him out of thin air. Bang, a muffled sound came out, and a human face gradually protruded from the membrane. From the looks of it, it seemed to be. That's right. It was Yin. Although he was invisible, his body still existed, so when he hit the plastic wrap, it was equivalent to exposing his position. Boom. Seeing a face protruding out, Jun Changshao raised his fist and punched it without saying a word. This punch was very strong, and it directly sent Yin flying, turning him from full invisibility to half invisibility. He covered his face and stabilized his body, looking at the membrane that blocked him before, and said in disbelief, What is this? Whoosh. At this moment, Jun Changshao jumped up, quickly formed a hand seal, and coldly shouted, Almighty Dragon of Heaven! Revered Xidigarba! Damn! Plastic wrap! Whoosh! Jun Changshao waved his hand, and layers of plastic wrap flew out from his cuffs, neatly arranged around him, and gradually closed in. The system roared. Shouldn't the line be Kusaya? Not good. Ian realized that something was wrong, and immediately broke out in a certain direction, constantly gathering power to bombard, hoping to break the plastic wrap that was constantly closing in. In the end, no matter how strong the explosion was, as long as it touched it, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth still here? You don't take me seriously at all. Jun Changshao pulled the plastic wrap behind him and shouted, "Get ready to catch the demon." Buzz buzz. Buzz buzz. The plastic wrap that was pulled instantly connected together, quickly closing in from all directions, and the space was constantly shrinking. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Ian would not sit still and wait for death. He exploded with all his strength, bombarding the plastic wrap again and again, but every time he hit it, it felt like he was hitting cotton. He had just spent 10,000 reputation points to buy the godly modified plastic wrap. Its effect was not only to preserve the freshness of food, but also to absorb all kinds of power. Puff. Suddenly, Jun Changshao spat out blood, and his body seemed to be overturned. Although the godly modified plastic wrap could absorb power, the side effect was that it was passed to the user. Therefore, Ian bombarded the plastic wrap wildly in the limited space. Although he did not directly break it, all the power that he blasted out was absorbed by Jun Changshao. That feeling was very satisfying. How dare you show off your slight skill in front of an expert? Almighty heavenly dragon. Jun Changshao suppressed his injuries and shouted coldly. The plastic wrap around him began to close in on him even faster. In the end, Ian, who had nowhere to hide, was trapped inside the plastic wrap. His body, which was hidden in the shadows, was perfectly revealed through the plastic wrap. Woo woo woo. Woo 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 woo. Boom boom. Boom boom boom. Jun Changshao took the opportunity to rush over and unleash a barrage of attacks on the bound Ian. He even gathered the power of heavenly sound. When the final punch landed, the other party's form was completely revealed, and he fainted with crooked eyebrows. At this point, the battle was over. Jun Changshao, who was in a state of abuse, used the plastic wrap he had just bought at the critical moment, and successfully defeated the Invisible Man, once again defending the dignity of the protagonist. Ding. Ding. When Ian was thrown into Tianyuan Prison Pagoda, he met the conditions of the side mission. Frequent notifications rang in his ears. As for what reward he would give, he had not thought about it yet. He would think about it later. Jian Guishu and the others were all dumbfounded. Jun Patriarch was originally in a disadvantageous situation. Why did he turn the tables by taking out layers of plastic wrap? Jun Changshao did not explain to them. He landed on another tower and looked at the terrified soldiers of the Star Spirit world outside. He said coldly, "Your leader has been taken down by me. Hurry up and get lost." As soon as these words came out, the enemy army collapsed. Shwa. Jun Changshao sat down cross-legged and put his hands on his legs. Under the backdrop of the rising sun, he said in a low voice, "Almighty heavenly dragon, all Buddhas are merciful." Chapter 1921. Ian was captured. The remaining soldiers of the Star Spirit world fled. The dilapidated Great Heaven City temporarily regained its tranquility. Pfft! Jun Changshao, who was sitting cross-legged, vomited blood again, and his face became even paler. Although he had caught Sixth Baby with the help of the godly modified plastic wrap, the other party had still caused him quite a bit of damage. In short, it was a bit of a coincidence that he was able to win this time. If he had not obtained this good item within the refresh times, it would have been very difficult to deal with it. As expected, Jun Changshao shook his head and sighed. If I can't solve something, I'll use the store. Although he had been trying his best to get rid of his dependence on the system store all these years, sometimes the special items that came out were really unpredictable. He had to admit that. Relying on yourself to work hard is indeed admirable, the system said. But in your long life, you can't do without the help of a benefactor. Me. System. He's your benefactor. P2. The sun rose, dispelling the darkness. The disciples of the sect of all times began to clean up the corpses outside the city, as well as the weapons and equipment scattered all over the ground. Most of them were broken, but they could be handed over to Fan Yezi to recast. The formation masters, led by the old man from Taixien, wandered to every corner of the city and began to set up formation flags and outline a line of defense. Buzz. A moment later, a stronger defensive formation was formed. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh. On the other side, Page worked hard to eat and spit out soil, gradually repairing the damaged city walls and towers. Jun Changshao wanted to use the Great Heaven City as his base, so he naturally needed to invest in manpower and resources to repair it. He's going to play big. Standing on the city tower, the demon ancestor's eyes gradually became shocked. At this moment, he had already realized that Jun Changshao wanted to use this city as his base, and then launch an attack on other cities, thus conquering the entire Star Spirit world. That's right. Goshing really thought so. The reason why he came to gather the power of the entire sect to attack the city was to prepare for conquering the Star Spirit world in the future. In the past, the demon ancestor would take down the city, plunder the resources and corpses, and leave. Very quickly, the other party would take it back. Jun Changshao did not plan to play like this. He wanted to fight with the Star Spirit world. The conspiracy turned into an overt one. This was not courage, but strength. Ta. On the wide main street of the city, Diablo fighters were patrolling. The warriors who lived here were all on tenterhooks. They were afraid. The zombies were overjoyed. After the city was occupied, the old man from Taixien had set up a soul-isolating array to help him defuse the bombs. They gained their freedom and naturally became the Avengers. There were a total of 3 million corpses in the city, and all of them had joined the battle, greatly increasing their military strength. Listen up. After treating his injuries, Jun Changshao sat in the main hall of the city lord's mansion and shouted through a loudspeaker. From today onwards, Big Sky City will be taken over by the sect of all times. You can live as usual without fear. Hearing this, everyone calmed down a little. However, the city had been taken over by the sect of all times, and the upper echelons of the astral spirit world would definitely not let this matter rest. They would definitely launch another attack, and it would be hard to say whether or not he could keep his life. Jun Changshao was not worried that the upper echelons of the astral spirit world would retaliate. In fact, he could not wait for them to attack. That way, they would not have to travel a long distance to take the initiative to attack. As expected, just a few days later, the astral spirit world gathered an army and attacked Big Sky City. A city had been taken over by the rebel army, and one of the upper echelons had been captured. This was a great humiliation, and anyone with courage could not tolerate it. Thief. The commander of the army said coldly, "Release Lordine, hand over Big Sky City, and leave your corpses intact." Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "Naive." Seeing that the rebel army had no intention of compromising, the commander of the army did not waste any time and immediately gave the order to attack the city. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Battleships flew over one after another, and rows of siege weapons appeared. When Yin came to help, he did not expect the city to be breached, so he did not prepare any siege weapons at all. This attack could be considered to have done their homework. Jun Changshao smiled. The astral spirit world was giving him equipment. In that case, he would accept it. "My babies." Jun Changshao clapped his hands and said, "Come out and welcome the guests." Swoosh. Shwa. Whoosh. The disciples of the sect of all times and the Avengers on top of the newly built city walls all carried their modified AK-47s and rocket launchers. After experiencing the thrill of being shot and bombed by firearms, they felt that their lives had reached the climax, so they couldn't stop. Painting style. He gradually turned into a sand sculpture. "You're an idiot to begin with." The system roared. Boom boom. Boom boom boom. The tragic defense of Great Heaven City began. Batches of Star Spirit World soldiers charged over fearlessly, only to fall under the rain of bullets. Jun Changshao did not watch the battle. He had already entered Tianyuan Prison Pagoda when the battle started. Pa. All the blood-curdling screams resounded throughout the 9 floors of the prison. Since the Night King Alliance had been merged into the June Alliance, Feng Wanli had been released. Otherwise, he would have been so shocked that his scalp would have dropped off by 3 layers. Who was being abused? King. This guy was also quite pitiful. He clearly had a special spirit seed that couldn't be spied on, but in the end, he fell on a plastic wrap. Especially after entering. He was taught a lesson by the prison trio every day. His life could be described as an abyss of suffering. Creak. Jun Changshao pushed open the door and walked in. Master. Arya stopped and said while panting. How long are we going to torture him? She, who took pleasure in educating others, was already tired. She was already bored. How crazy was this abuse? Torture him until he's willing to hand over the hidden spirit. Jun Changshao said indifferently. Fuck. The system said. I knew that this guy took her in to fulfill a man's dream. It could turn invisible and not be discovered. With such a good spirit seed, Jun Changshao naturally had to think of a way to control it. Kane's face was unusually ferocious. The hidden spirit has already merged with me. It's impossible to hand it over. The truth. Other than the reincarnation spirit, the other spirit seeds would usually be separated after the host died. Of course, Kane smiled with difficulty. You can't kill me, because if I die, the spirit seed will return to the universe again. To find it is tantamount to looking for a needle in a haystack. Once the host died, the spirit seed would return to the universe and wait for the next successor. For example, the Night King. In order to break through to a higher level, he directly chose to commit suicide. All the spirit seeds in his body would return to the universe again. In the years to come, Gu Zhaoxi would become the new successor of the reincarnation spirit. Don't worry. Jun Changshao leaned over and smiled. I won't let the spirit seed disappear. I will make it appear on its own. Arya. Torture him to death. Yes. Pa pa pa. Pa 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 pa. Ah, screams sounded again. As the soul-suppressing whip whipped his body again and again, Kane's soul and body suffered hellish torture. I can't hold on anymore. I can't take it anymore. Whoosh. Suddenly, a stream of light rushed out of his body and escaped toward the prison door. How dare you, evildoer! Jun Changshao waved his hand and shouted. Where do you think you're going? Whoosh whoosh. The god-modified plastic wrap played its role again. It was like an indestructible barrier in front of the door. When the stream of light hit it, it quickly wrapped it up. Woo woo woo. The little guy who was tied inside made a little noise that deserved a beating. In the end, he realized that he couldn't escape even if he had wings, and could only obediently stop resisting. Master. Arya was surprised. What is this? Jun Changshao took back the plastic wrap that had melted into a ball and said, The hidden spirit. Puff. Hanging in midair, Kane spurted blood. He seemed to be unable to bear the fact that the spirit seed had left his body without permission and fainted. Poor Eva. It meant that the last of her pride and dignity was gone. Chapter 1922. Everyone may have forgotten that the real function of the Tianyuan prison pagoda was to purify things that were not clean. This thing could be defined as an attribute. Although the hidden spirit was born in the universe, it still did not transcend the level of attributes. When the hidden spirit was crazily whipped by the soul-subduing whip, it could no longer resist and ran out. To put it bluntly, it was a deserter. After being ravaged for so long, the hidden spirit had withstood it, but it could not withstand the attribute leaving its body without permission, so it fainted on the spot. Sure enough, Jun Changshao said. The spirit seed is also afraid of the soul-subduing whip. Ing-ing-ing. Ing-ing-ing. The little guy was trapped in the plastic wrap and made a weak sound, giving people a feeling that it deserved a beating. In fact, the Tianyuan prison pagoda alone might not be able to stop it from leaving. However, Gosheng bought a brand new prop that specialized in curing all kinds of invisibility and slipperiness. Don't be afraid. Jun Changshao said gently. As long as you are willing to surrender to me, I will not hurt you. Zhao Daodu and Dai Lu were speechless. The patriarch's meaning was very obvious. If you don't surrender to me, I will hurt you severely. Overbearing. Worship. Impossible. The hidden spirit said in a more unyielding tone. I only surrender to the master who has been recognized. I will not surrender to a stranger. Oh, Jun Changshao said. In that case, why did you escape? The hidden spirit was speechless. Boom. Jun Changshao directly pressed the plastic wrap on the ground, and his gentle face turned ferocious. In my territory, you can only surrender. There is no other choice. Killing intent. Anger. It suddenly rippled in the prison. This sudden change in expression shocked Zhao Daodu and Dai Lv so much that their hair stood on end. Area. Whip. Chua. Area obediently handed over the soul-subduing whip. Seeing this, the hidden spirit hurriedly said, I surrender. Bah. Zhao Daodu and Dai Lu spat at the same time and said, what a fucking coward. It was inevitable. Just as Jun Changshao had said, if it had a backbone, it wouldn't have escaped from its master's body. Relax your mind. Sign the contract. Jun Changshao already had 2 spirit seeds, so he was quite experienced in fusing them. Therefore, he did not go overboard in describing it. In short, at this moment, he was achieving the dream of a man. It would only take 2 hours. His dream was complete. Jun Changshao sat cross-legged in the monitoring room of Tianyuan Prison Pagoda. He first exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, then slowly opened his eyes. His first reaction was that he didn't feel anything. The second reaction was that he still didn't feel anything. As for the concealment spirit, it shrunk into his dantian like a child who had been wronged. At this point, Gosheng had 3 spirit seeds. The concealment spirit had turned into a streak of light and fled, so he couldn't accurately determine its form. Now he could clearly see that although it was pocket-sized, it was about the same as an adult, which meant that it had reached adulthood. Speaking of which, he had to mention Xiaohua and little Xia. Although the 2 sons had been nurturing, they were still at the level of teenagers. It wasn't that they didn't want to grow up quickly, but growth required a lot of time. Remember, Jun Changshao said, the 3 of you must get along well. Yes, father. Xiaohua and little Xia said innocently. However, as soon as their master retracted his consciousness, they immediately surrounded the concealment spirit. Xiaohua clenched his fists and said sinisterly, from today onwards, I'm your big brother, and he's your second brother. Wait. Little Xia said unhappily. Why are you the big brother? I came first. You only came a few years earlier than me. Even if I came a day earlier, I came first. Don't talk nonsense. I'm the big brother, you're the second brother, and he's the third brother. No, I'll be the big brother, and you'll be the second brother. You've got guts, haven't you? Seeing the 2 spirit seeds of the same kind quarreling, and even having a feeling of fighting, the concealment spirit was extremely scared. Then it suddenly entered a state of complete concealment. Don't misunderstand. This wasn't because it was afraid that it deliberately hid, but because Jun Changshao in the outside world used this power, and he turned from a real existence into an invisible figure without a trace. I feel it. Gosheng, who had entered a state of complete concealment, felt as if he had become one with heaven and earth. So he locked his gaze on the mountain peak where the disciples lived, and a smile gradually appeared on his invisible face. Just being invisible wasn't enough. He had to prove it. Splash, splash, splash. The sound of water sounded beautiful and pleasant. The female disciples wore their school uniforms and brought bath lotion, chatting and laughing as they walked in. After cultivating for a day, they must be very tired. Only a hot bath could relieve them, so they would come to the bathhouse every day. Of course, the bathhouse's security was very high. Layers of isolation arrays protected it, and thoughts couldn't pry in at all. However, the door was open, and one could enter and exit at will. Jun Changshao, who was in a state of complete concealment, tiptoed over and even stopped at the entrance of the bathhouse to look around, fearing that others would see him. Bathing was a very secretive thing. Therefore, it was best to test the effect of invisibility. I wasn't discovered. Seeing the disciples walking past, Jun Changshao stuck to the wall and said to himself, "It's indeed magical." The system was speechless. "Host, do you really want to do this? I have to do this." Jun Changshao said, "This is a man's dream. Your character will collapse." The system said, "Please think twice before you act." "Shut up," Jun Changshao scolded. "I know what I'm doing." The system was speechless. "If you had any idea, you wouldn't have gone straight to the bathhouse after obtaining the invisibility ability. Indeed, it was really inappropriate to sneak into the bathhouse with invisibility." Jun Changshao stuck to the door for a long time. After comforting himself many times, he walked in resolutely. Splash, splash. Splash, splash. The sound of running water became clearer. The steam filled the bathhouse. The fragrance permeated the air and refreshed the mind. Jun Changshao kept his head down. It could be seen that the line of morality was still very heavy on his head. Very soon, in his field of vision, he saw legs. Many legs walked to and fro from the side. Phew! Jun Changshao's breathing quickened. The disciples didn't realize that someone was hiding in the dark, so they were still talking and laughing. Very good. Very good. After confirming that he wasn't discovered, Jun Changshao removed the invisibility state, put his hands on his waist and laughed. "Haha, you didn't discover me, right? Jie." The bathhouse quieted down. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaoma and the others stood in place in shock. They were all bare-chested and wrapped in bath towels. Some were preparing to enter the shower room, some were resting on the wooden bed, and some were applying facial masks. At this moment, they all looked at the patriarch who suddenly appeared. The camera moved to the outside, and the words "male bathhouse" were clearly written. "Ha ha ha. Are you surprised? Are you pleasantly surprised?" Li Qingyang and the others looked like they were about to collapse. They thought, what's so surprising about the patriarch coming to the male bathhouse? What's there to be surprised about? Chapter 1923. Jun Changshao went to the male bathhouse and was not discovered by the disciples. This meant that the test was very successful. Pa! After returning to the study, he bumped his fists together and laughed. "Since I won't be discovered, I can do a lot of things in the star spirit world." Invisibility. He couldn't see it. It could be used to do a lot of sneaky things. Moreover, the star spirit world was equivalent to a huge treasure trove. If they were not discovered, they could really do whatever they wanted. Speaking of which, was the Great Heaven City defense battle over? It had long ended, and the star spirit world left with heavy losses. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others would only come to the bathhouse to take a bath after cleaning up the battlefield. Judging from the strength of the sect of all time stationed in the Great Heaven City, if the star spirit world did not increase their troops and efforts, even if they came once a day, they would only be delivering equipment. Of course, Jun Changshao could not wait for them to take the initiative to attack. During the calm period, he had to find something to do, such as stealing some resources and equipment. At night, he flew out of the city like a ghost. His body gradually faded into nothingness, as if he had completely merged with heaven and earth. 1,000 miles away from the Great Heaven City, there was a relatively large city. At this moment, it was heavily guarded, and the atmosphere was quite serious. The remaining soldiers who had failed to attack the city earlier came here. The commander and the higher-ups were standing in the barracks, discussing how to take back the occupied city. "General," someone said, "we must increase our troops." They did not break through the Great Heaven City. Firstly, the defensive firepower was too strong, and secondly, the overall quality of the soldiers was not strong enough. If the higher-ups could give more attention and transfer stronger troops, they should be able to take it down easily. The Elder Council has sent a message. Soon, the most elite army of our star spirit world will be deployed. The general said seriously. The most elite army? A deputy general was shocked. Could it be the Flying Tiger Army? That's right. Everyone was overjoyed. The Flying Tiger Army was the trump card army of the star spirit world. Every soldier was carefully selected, and they had gone out to carry out missions many times. They had never failed. Whoosh! Suddenly the sound of wind breaking could be heard. Who? Everyone turned their heads in shock, and found a woman with messy long hair standing behind them. Although she was wearing heavy armor, it could not hide her graceful figure. General Yu. The general hurriedly saluted. When the deputy generals heard the two words Marshal Yu, their expressions changed at first. Then they all saluted him with high standards and exclaimed in their hearts, "The Flying Tiger Army's marshal." That was right. The leader of the most elite legion in the Star Spirit world was a woman who was not inferior to men. Don't be fooled by her beauty. Not only was she powerful, but she was also vicious and merciless. She had killed countless living beings and destroyed countless realms. Trash. Yu Shuai sat at the head of the table. Her beautiful eyes flashed with coldness as she said, "You can't even take down a single city, yet you still want my Flying Tiger Army to mobilize?" Everyone lowered their heads in shame. "General Yu," the general said bitterly, "the rebels who took over Detian City are too strong. No matter how strong they are, how can they be stronger than the Tianhe realm?" The general was silent. The Milky Way realm was a first-class realm that had been invaded by the Star Spirit realm. At first, they had sent a large number of warships and soldiers to attack, but they had been defeated repeatedly. At that time, all the generals had participated and were taught a harsh lesson by the enemy. Later, they had to mobilize the Flying Tiger Army to take them down. During the final battle, they all thought it would be very tragic. In the end, the largest main city of the Milky Way realm was taken down in just 1 hour. They would never forget the scene of the slender Yu Shuai carrying the head of the enemy commander and walking out of the city gate step by step on high heels. "My men are on the way." Yu Shuai crossed her long legs and gently interlocked her fingers. She said, "You can get lost now." "No need," the general originally wanted to say. "Do you need help?" But he remembered that the Flying Tiger Army was the most elite legion in the Star Spirit world. If he said that, wouldn't it mean that he was questioning them? Whoosh! Whoosh! That night, many agile and well-trained soldiers flew into the city. They were all wearing black armor, with bows and crossbows on their backs and swords hanging on their waists. Their helmets barely revealed 2 eyes, which were shining with a sharp luster like that of a fierce tiger. The Flying Tiger Army. There were not many of them, only a few tens of thousands. However, when they stood neatly on the drill ground, the aura they exuded made the ordinary soldiers blush with shame. Swoosh! Yu Shuai walked out of the barracks, leaned to one side, and put his right hand on his waist. He said, "The army will rest for 1 night." Yes. The soldiers received the order and went into the tents to rest. They were very strong, but they had rushed here overnight after receiving orders from their superiors. They must be mentally exhausted, so they had to rest up and then take down the Great Sky City as quickly as possible. TSK. On the city tower, Jun Changshao thought, so professional. This was a god's perspective. Everyone could see him leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. The real scene was in a state of full concealment. They could not see anything at all. Goxing came early. He heard the conversation between the general and the deputy generals. "Flying Tiger Army?" Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "It sounds very imposing. I hope it's not a paper tiger." Whoosh! He disappeared and landed in front of the tent. The soldiers of the Flying Tiger Army had enough time to rest, so they all took off their armor and placed it neatly. This gave Jun Changshao a chance to attack. Bow. Take it away. Crossbow. Take it away. Sabers, spears, swords, halberds, axes, hooks, tridents. Take it all away. Because it was in a state of concealment and avoided all kinds of warning formations, Jun Changshao stole effortlessly. Hua! The sound of water entering could be heard. Jun Changshao, who was about to leave, suddenly found that the woman who was respectfully called Yu Shuai was actually taking a bath, so he sneaked in without blushing and took the armor on the shelf. "It's over," the system said. "Your persona has collapsed." "Collapse my ass," Jun Changshao said. "I just stole the armor, I didn't even look at it." "Who would believe you? I, Jun Changshao, am upright. If I'm upright, I'm not afraid of a crooked shadow. Believe it or not. Tui. The system spat and said. If you're upright, why are you stealing? The star spirit world is the enemy. How can it be called stealing? Jun Changshao said. This is a strategy, this is a battle tactic. What do you know? The system was speechless and said, Okay. Jun Changshao quietly left the barracks, but did not return to the eternal world. Instead, he continued to wander in the city. As soon as he left, he heard Yu Shui screaming, Where's my armor? Hearing this, the soldiers who were resting woke up from their sleep. When they were about to put on their armor skillfully, they found that the hangars were empty, so they exclaimed in unison, The armor has been stolen. It was a mess and cracked. The most elite army in the star spirit world. Jun Changshao, who was discussing strategy and tactics in the city, said disdainfully, Tui. Chapter 1924. The most elite army of the astral spirit world had just arrived, and all their equipment was stolen by Jun Changshao. For better or for worse, he was the master of a sect and the master of a realm. Yet he was doing such despicable things. Go Sheng would do anything to deal with his enemies. Besides, didn't he know to put the armor and equipment in the spatial ring? Why would he put it on the hanger? Was he not waiting for him to steal it? Be careful next time. Jun Changshao shook his head. Don't make a mistake. In fact, he wanted to steal it along with the spatial ring, but most of it was worn on his finger, and he would be discovered if he took it off. Let's go. Jun Changshao left the city. The treasuries of the aristocrats were all cleaned out. This line. He took a lot of things, especially the Flying Tiger Army's equipment, which was of extremely high level and quality. Patriarch. In the forging hall, Fan Yezi touched the armor and said in surprise, The material is good. Can it be improved? Jun Changshao asked. No. Fan Yezi said seriously. The armor made from this ore is of the highest level. There is no need to improve it. You mean it can be given to the disciples directly? Yes. That will save us a lot of trouble. Jun Changshao left one for Fan Yezi to study, and gave the rest to the War Cavalry Hall. Diablo had always been black, and the Flying Tiger Army's black armor was in line with the Sect of all times' mainstream color scheme, so the members did not feel uncomfortable wearing it. Instead, they felt comfortable wearing it. Who should I give this armor to? Jun Changshao thought. In fact, in terms of level, the armor Yu Shui wore was already a top-level treasure, but there were very few female disciples in the sect, and there was no one in the War Cavalry Hall, so he could only consider other disciples. At this moment, Lu Qianqian walked out from the back of the mountain. She had not been in the limelight recently because she had been cultivating. Judging from her cold aura, her strength should have improved by quite a bit. Qianqian. Jun Changshao called her and said, I have an extraordinary armor. Do you want it? Yes. Lu Qianqian did not hesitate. When she first entered the sect, Go Sheng had taken the initiative to offer her weapons in the shop. This was a world of difference. They were humans after all. Everything will change. Of course, even though it wasn't as exaggerated as Yi Xingqian's, at least he knew that the Patriarch's gift was definitely extraordinary. Take it. Jun Changshao tossed the armor over. Thank you, Patriarch. Lu Qianqian gave a simple reply and returned to her residence to rest. Jun Changshao was used to his eldest disciple's cold personality, so he did not mind. He returned to the study and opened the system panel. Now that he had dealt with Yin, his mission was complete. He had obtained 20,000 reputation points, which he planned to use to purchase a transcendent secret realm. Go Sheng had only purchased the space-time secret domain out of the 3 transcendent secret domains he had obtained from the previous quest. Now that he had enough reputation points, he planned to purchase another one. Fuck. The system roared. I thought you forgot. Bullshit. Jun Changshao said. I won't forget unless I can't remember. What should I choose? Go Sheng began to consider. The 2 secret domains were the Transcendent 10,000 Arts secret domain and the Transcendent Heaven Veins secret domain. As for their functions, he would only know after he bought them. Buy whatever you want. The system said, they will definitely be useful. Jun Changshao believed this, so he prepared 2 pieces of paper and wrote down the names of the secret domains. He crumpled them up and began to draw lots. Finally, he drew the Transcendent Heaven Vein's secret domain and bought it without hesitation. Ding! The host has spent 20,000 reputation points and obtained the Transcendent Heaven Vein's secret domain X1. It has been transferred to the space ring. Ding! Sect reputation points, 200. Seeing that the reputation points were almost spent, Jun Changshao said with heartache, when will this thing collapse into Zimbabwe dollars like the contribution points? As usual, by a secret domain given instruction manual. Jun Changshao read carefully. The more he read, the more excited he became. Then he couldn't control his emotions and kissed the face next to him. Rose of Flowers was stunned and then shyly lowered her head. Jie. Jun Changshao's expression suddenly froze, and then he held his head and shouted, "When did you come in?" "I just came in." Go Sheng was so engrossed in reading the instruction manual that he didn't notice Rose of Flowers pushing the door and entering. Because he knew the function of the Transcendent Heaven Vein's secret domain, he couldn't control his emotions and did something irrational. Everyone pretended not to see it. "What made you so happy?" Rose of Flowers also knew that under normal circumstances, her husband wouldn't do such a thing, so there must be a reason. "Let's go." Jun Changshao took her hand and said, "Let me show you something good." Rose of Flowers didn't resist and let him take her out of the study. She thought to herself, "My husband is so relaxed now." Of course, holding hands was no pressure for Go Sheng. Just now, he accidentally kissed her, and there was a little shyness and obscurity of a young man. Young man? Oh. As long as there was a new secret domain, it naturally had to be placed in the back of the mountain. So Jun Changshao came with Rose of Flowers and directly placed the hot entrance of the Transcendent Heaven Vein's secret domain. Is there a new secret domain? Seeing this, all the disciples surrounded them with burning eyes. At this time, Su Xiaoma stopped them and scolded. "Don't you see that the patriarch and madam are alone together? What are you doing here? Hurry up and stay where you are." It had to be said. Although Big Mouth Su liked to gossip, he still had good eyesight. Yes, yes, yes. Everyone hurriedly suppressed their curiosity and retreated. "What is this?" Rose of Flowers in front of the secret domain asked. "Go in and you will know." Jun Changshao didn't know if he was deliberately keeping her in suspense or deliberately taking advantage of her. He took her hand and walked into the Transcendent Heaven Vein's secret domain. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two merged into the vortex and were in the Red Land. Rose of Flowers looked around and found that there was nothing special except for the environment. She was puzzled and asked, "Is it very ordinary?" Jun Changshao pointed to a mountain in the distance and said, "Look carefully." Rose of Flowers looked at it attentively. At first, she didn't find anything special but gradually realized it and said in surprise, "This is a spiritual stone vein?" Gosheng nodded. Rose of Flowers' spiritual thoughts had spread out and found that there were mountains in the area where they were, all of which revealed the majestic nature of heaven and earth. So she covered her mouth in disbelief and said, "These mountains are all veins." "No," Jun Changshao said with a smile. "The mountains, stones, and plants in the secret domain are all transformed by spiritual stones." "What?" The shock in Rose of Flowers' eyes was more intense. Then she looked down at the stone covered with moss under her feet. After careful observation, she was sure that this was indeed a large, spiritual stone. The Transcendent Heaven Vein's secret domain. Jun Changshao put his hands on his hips and said proudly, "It means that the whole world is a spiritual stone vein." After saying that, he waved his hand and picked up a leaf. It was just a spiritual stone that looked like a leaf. The nature of heaven and earth inside was not inferior to the highest level of spiritual stones in the upper realm. At this time, the camera zoomed out infinitely and hung at the highest point of the secret domain. Jun Changshao and Rose of Flowers were like ants. Everything around them was gathered by spiritual stones. The majestic nature of heaven and earth formed a sea of clouds floating between heaven and earth. There were spiritual stones everywhere. There were veins everywhere. The transcendent heaven vein's secret domain. It was terrifying. Chapter 1925. Plop. Su Xiaoma fell to the ground. Plop. Li Qingyang also fell to the ground. Any disciple of the sect of all times who entered the secret realm with rich heaven and earth attributes, and felt that every blade of grass and tree was transformed from spirit stones did the same thing. The heaven vein secret realm. It was actually equivalent to a plane. Although its scale was not as big as the eternal world, it was not inferior to the upper realm. It was composed entirely of spirit stone veins, which was really shocking. It's over. Ren Shan leaned against the wall, tears falling like rain. I'm unemployed. As a famous koi in the sect of all times, he could often find spirit stone veins by accident. Now that the secret realm was full of them, he did not need to look at them at all. His sense of existence must be even more insignificant. There were indeed many spirit stone veins in the secret realm, but what about their level? Even the leaf-shaped spirit stones were not weaker than the highest level in the upper realm, which was enough to show that they were very strong. Do you like it? Jun Changshao asked loudly. I like it. All the disciples shouted in unison. Then what are we waiting for? Hurry up and mine it. Yes. Li Qingyang and the others dispersed and plunged into the deep mountains and old forests. They did not look at the stones and trees beside them at all, because their intuition told them that there must be more high-level spirit stones hidden there. As expected, after a while, Xiao Zuiji lifted a heavy mountain rock and flew into the air. He couldn't hide his excitement and said, "Look what I found." Everyone looked over, and their eyes were suddenly filled with envy. The rock Xiao Zuiji lifted was very heavy, belonging to the super-large ore. The surface was surrounded by heaven and earth attributes, obviously stronger than the top-level spirit stones in the star spiritual world. Haha. Jun Changshao looked up and laughed. At present, the highest level of universe spirit stones in the upper realm was in the star spiritual world, but there were higher levels in the secret realm, which was definitely going to be awesome. Not only that, the disciples found even stronger spirit stones one after another. Boom. Li Qingyang flew out, placed a hill on the ground and said excitedly, "This is even stronger." Oh my God. Everyone's eyes widened. They had seen hills piled up by spirit stones, but they had never seen a spirit stone that was as big as a hill. How many years will it take? Just how much heaven and earth attribute does it contain? Unbelievable. The disciples spent most of the day in the secret realm, and each of them had a great harvest. They had all obtained high-quality and huge spirit stones. It was no exaggeration to say that they were in an environment full of spirit stones and mineral veins. As long as they stretched out their hands slightly, they could obtain a large amount of mineral veins. Moreover, it was inexhaustible. It was worth it. Jun Changshao said. It was so worth it. With the ability to become invisible, wouldn't it be a matter of limited resources if he went out to steal? Now that the heaven vein secret realm was filled with powerful resources, he could really squander them to his heart's content. AI. The system sighed and said, "This hack is crazy." However, it said proudly, it also proves the strength of the system even more. It also proves that it only provides timely help, not icing on the cake. Indeed, a secret realm full of mineral veins was definitely a timely help. The array hall, forging hall, and other departments had already reached a technological bottleneck. Now that more powerful resources had appeared, it would definitely bring in huge profits. If the disciples used it to absorb and cultivate, their cultivation speed would definitely skyrocket. There was no denying it. The power of the celestial music was a very powerful energy. However, this was the upper universe after all. After all, it was mainly heaven and earth spiritual energy. The attributes from the land of eternal life could only be used occasionally to unleash unpredictable power. When it came to fighting on the battlefield, the real battle of attrition still depended on the heaven and earth attribute. The appearance of the heaven vein secret realm was equivalent to giving the sect of all times unlimited energy. Page. On the mountain peak, Jun Changshao said, "It's been hard on you all these years." Page was very emotional. It had not had a heart-to-heart talk with its master for a long time. Do you still remember the promise between you and me? Yes, Page said. I won't forget until I die. What promise? When Jun Changshao ascended the mountain peak, he hoped to have it by his side. This sentence had been deeply motivating Page. No matter whether it was the most tiring work or the most difficult work, every time it thought of it, it would be full of fighting spirit, as if it had been injected with chicken blood. It could not admit defeat. It could not admit defeat. It had to continue to become stronger. It had to accompany its master. I'm very pleased that you can grow and become stronger all the way. But this seems to be far from enough. Page lowered its head and said in shame, I'm ignorant. In terms of beast quality, it was not as good as the master of the dragon clan, Little Long Long. It had barely not dropped the ball because of its almost crazy cultivation. However, there was still a limit to its race and bloodline. Jun Changshao naturally understood this, so he patted Page's head and said, If there's a chance, I'll let you completely sublimate. Thank you, master. Page was so touched that it was about to cry. However, Jun Changshao waved his sleeve and pointed to the seemingly endless world in the distance. Your first task now is to dig out all the spirit stones here. The system said. After all this fuss, it's still a tool. Yes. Page jumped down. If it could hear the system's thoughts, it would definitely bare its fangs and brandish its claws. I'm willing to be a tool. Huff huff. Huff huff huff. Inside the heaven's vain secret realm, Page seemed to have turned into a diligent old yellow ox, crazily mining the mountains, rivers, and plants that the spirit stones had turned into. Although it was a bit tiring, it was enjoying it. Speaking of which, Jun Changshao had or mining tools. Why did he still use Page? The system only saw that Go Sheng used Page as a tool, but it did not know that mining spirit stones was also a kind of cultivation. All these years, Page was still able to keep up with the large group because it was constantly busy. Although it was quite miserable, it could improve itself time and time again, stimulating itself time and time again. Early contract beasts such as the purple lightning spirit tiger and the ice lion did not even have a camera at the moment. Wasn't it because their strength was seriously out of line with their masters? In short, for the time being, Jun Changshao did not have the means to make his contract beasts stronger easily, so he could only train them by enduring hardships. Unfortunately, many people could not understand Go Sheng's good intentions and really treated him as a capitalist who desperately exploited his contract beasts. Others laugh at me for being too crazy. On the mountain peak, Jun Changshao held his hands behind his back and shook his head. I laugh at others for not being able to see through me. Patriarch. A voice sounded in his ears. The star spirit world is attacking. Oh. Jun Changshao responded and appeared in front of the great sky city's gate tower out of thin air. He casually looked into the distance and saw tens of thousands of star spirit world soldiers lined up neatly, exuding an aura that could shake mountains and rivers. Flying Tiger Army. They were here. However, because their flagship-level equipment was stolen, they were all wearing sub-flagship-level equipment. This did not matter. For the Flying Tiger Army soldiers, equipment was nothing more than a small bonus. As long as they were strong enough and had good teamwork, they could naturally make up for it perfectly. You are the leader of the rebels? Yu Shuai stood in front of the formation and locked onto Jun Changshao. Go Sheng looked at the armor she was wearing. The quality was not inferior to the one he had stolen before, and said, So you have more than one piece of equipment of this level. Yu Shuai's entire face suddenly darkened and said, You were the one who stole this marshal's armor? Yes. Jun Changshao confessed. Suddenly, a very bold idea appeared in his sea of consciousness. The things he bought in the system store were all stolen, and he was now happy to steal. Could it be? Was it really the system that he created in the future, and inherited the personality of stealing? Fuck. Go Sheng roared. It's really possible. The system was silent for a moment, and said weakly, Don't come if you have diabetes. Chapter 1926. Jun Changshao started to let his imagination run wild again. This guy was sick. He either thought that he had a transcendent identity, or that the system was created by himself in the future. For such patients, the best way was to prevent diabetes from coming, lest he get a taste of the benefits. Shameless thief, Yu Shuai said angrily with a cold face. I will tear you to pieces. Sorry, Jun Changshao said. You don't have the ability. Yu Shuai obviously did not want to argue with him. She first adjusted her anger, then waved her hand and said coldly, 1 hour. Take down to Tian City. 1 hour? Jun Changshao almost laughed out loud. You're that confident? Swish. Swish. At this moment, the tens of thousands of Flying Tiger Army soldiers had already moved. They did not use the most primitive charging tactic, but quickly split up into groups of dozens and charged over from different angles. Interesting. Shuirengui's lips curled into a smile. Swoosh. Swoosh. The disciples of the Sect of all times and the Avengers summoned all kinds of firearms again, and stood around the city wall, loading bullets and waiting for the enemy to get close. The Flying Tiger Army had obviously understood the situation of the failed siege. When the defenders entered battle mode, the soldiers at the front took out special shields from their spatial rings. These shields were similar to Xiao Ziji's flowing light shield. A few people crossed in front of them and protected their companions behind them. One word. Professional. Jun Changshao sat on the city wall with a smile on his face. Shuirengui was in charge of defending the city. He was just there to watch the show and find a way to capture that woman called Yu Shuai and take off her armor for his disciples. Huff. 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 The tens of thousands of Flying Tiger Army soldiers advanced layer by layer. They were very close to the city, and the murderous aura on the battlefield was getting stronger. Fire. At this moment, Shuirengui gave the order. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. The disciples of the Sect of all times and the Avengers, who were already prepared, pulled the trigger. The screen was filled with bullets that swept toward the tens of thousands of enemies like a tide. Ding ding. Ding ding. The bullets hit the shield one after another, producing sparks and crisp sounds. However, they did not penetrate the shield, and only pushed the person holding the shield back a few steps. Shua. Seeing this, Shuirengui raised his hand immediately. Xiao Ziji, who was leaning against the wall of the fort with his arms crossed, kicked the muzzle of the cannon. This action was so cool. Crack. The muzzle of the cannon stopped precisely at the charging area outside the city, then detonated with a loud boom. The cannonball tore through the air like a shooting star, and flew out in a beautiful arc. Jun Changshao closed his eyes and listened. Art originates from explosions. Whoosh. Whoosh. Suddenly, one soldier after another flew out from the continuously charging enemy square formation. They quickly took out mirror-like treasures from their space rings and shone them at each other. Instantly, they formed a series of lights that interweaved into an inescapable net, standing in the path of the cannonballs. Jun Changshao opened his eyes. In the blink of an eye, the cannonball arrived as expected. However, when it came into contact with the stream of light, not only did it not explode, but it also bounced back. That works. Jun Changxiao's face was full of surprise. Not good. Xiao Ziji's expression changed drastically. He immediately jumped down from the fort and activated the lines on the back of his hand. His entire body was instantly mechanized. He placed the stream of light shield in front of him and shouted, "Shield up." The text effect burst out and merged into the shield, causing it to expand rapidly and cover a wide enough area. Boom. The moment the shield was set up, the cannonball that was bounced back directly hit it, creating the explosive art Jun Changshao was looking forward to. In the distance, near the city walls of Tian City, a mushroom cloud slowly rose. The entire world seemed to tremble. Even the defensive array around the city was directly shaken to the point of being exposed. From this, one could directly understand how terrifying the power of the field artillery after receiving a stronger energy source could be. Fuck. Jun Changshao waved his hand to disperse the billowing smoke. The expression on his face was extremely interesting. The system couldn't help but laugh. This kind of hot weapon had always been used to blow up others, But in the end, it blew itself up. It was a bit funny. Cough cough. In the center of the explosion, Xiao Ziji's coughs could be heard. The huge stream of light shield was still standing in front of him. Although it was densely packed with cracks, it didn't directly shatter. It was resolved. However, the consequences were a bit serious. Plop. Xiao Ziji couldn't support himself anymore, and half knelt on the ground. The shield in front of him shattered into streams of light. Even the mech armor on his body began to crack. Taking the bombardment of the field artillery made him lose all his defenses. In a place filled with dust and sand, the slightly weathered back suddenly stopped. The camera slowly moved over, and a cold face gradually appeared. "What's wrong?" the woman next to him asked. Although the environment was harsh and sand was everywhere, it couldn't hide the beauty of a country. Perhaps due to her maternal instincts, her right hand was placed on her abdomen to protect the fetus. That's right. She was Jie Lingyao. The aged man who suddenly stopped was naturally Yi Xingchen. As the second male lead of the book, he appeared in the camera again. Although he was still incomparably arrogant, his eyes were full of warmth. Yi Xingchen didn't say anything, but his heart was aching. Jie Lingyao saw that his face was a bit ugly and asked, "Are you not feeling well?" Swoosh. Suddenly Yi Xingchen turned around and carried her up. His eyes were cold as he said, "Let's go back to the sect." When Xiao Ziji took the bombardment of the cannonball, when his defenses were broken, he, who was far away in another plane, felt it. This was the love of a fellow sect member that surpassed friendship. Whoosh, the two figures disappeared into the yellow sand. Wah. On the city wall of the Star Spirit World's Big Sky City, Xiao Ziji spat out a mouthful of blood. The mech armor on his body had been shattered. It was obvious that taking the bombardment of the cannonball with his own strength had caused great damage to his body. Motherfucker. Seeing that his disciple was injured, Jun Changshao got up in anger. He pointed at the soldiers who were constantly charging and shouted, "Kill them all!" Swoosh. Swoosh. The disciples put away their firearms and took out all kinds of weapons made by Fan Yezi. They directly flew out of the city wall. Since bullets couldn't break it, they would fight with bayonets. Humph. Seeing this, Yu Shuai said coldly, "A bunch of idiots." They were clearly the defending side of the city. Instead of choosing to defend properly, they jumped out to fight with the attacking side. Their brains must have been flooded with water. Fine. This saved him a lot of trouble. Change the formation. Yu Shuai had a whole set of plans to deal with the enemy charging out. However, before the soldiers in the vanguard were ready to change, an extremely strong cold current spread from the city wall. Ka-ka-ka. Ka-ka-ka. The cold current spread down from the city wall and gradually formed a layer of ice wherever it passed. Whoosh. Lu Qianqian slid down and stood at the city gate. Fuck. Su Xiaoma, who was about to jump down, suddenly stopped. His eyes were wide and round. Li Qingyang and the others were the same. Eldest senior sister had never participated in a fight before. Was there a need to make such a fuss? In fact, what shocked them was not Lu Qianqian's appearance. They were shocked that she had changed from her usual white clothes and was now wearing a pitch-black armor. In everyone's eyes, eldest senior sister was an otherworldly fairy. Because she cultivated the ice element, she had always been related to the color white. However, she suddenly changed her outfit today and changed to the opposite color black. It was really unexpected. Don't say it. Jun Changshao held his chin and said, "She has a different temperament in black." Chapter 1927. Lu Qianqian's appearance in her pitch-black armor shocked the disciples of the sect of all times. It was understandable. After all, first senior sister had always liked to wear white, like an otherworldly fairy. Now that she suddenly changed her style, it would be difficult for her to adapt. She was beautiful. She looked good in everything. This was perfectly reflected on Lu Qianqian. The black battle armor was draped over her body, covering that ice-cold immortal aura, adding a type of coldness and viciousness. Actors with good acting skills did not need smoky makeup. They could change from innocent to villainous with just their eyes. Lu Qianqian, on the other hand, had completely changed from a beautiful and refined woman to a murderess which with just a disguise. It had to be said. With the black armor, her temperament changed drastically. Kill. Kill. The soldiers of the Flying Tiger Army in the front row charged with weapons. Their mission was to break through to Tian City. Anyone who blocked their way must be crushed to powder. Zero region freeze. Lu Qianqian raised her hand and cold air surged out. Ka ka ka. Ka ka ka. The cold air froze the ground like a tide and spread to the soldiers charging at her. Ice particles stuck to their bodies, causing them to slow down and even stiffen. Jun Changshao said in surprise. She broke through? The cold air released by Lu Qianqian was obviously colder and purer than before. There was only one possibility. She broke through to the heaven's secret state? This kid is enlightened? The old man from Taishan thought. Elder Wei thought to himself. She should be enlightened. Ka-ka. The cold air was like a surging flood, instantly filling the battlefield. The thousands of soldiers of the Flying Tiger Army were all in a charging posture, and turned into lifelike ice sculptures. Gee. The soldiers behind saw this and stopped at the edge of the battlefield in fear. At this moment, the ground in front of them was covered in ice, like a natural giant ice skating rink. This was the Zero region. This was Lu Qianqian's new ice god art. After using it, an ice rink would form in a specific area in front of her. As long as one's strength was weaker than hers, they would either be slowed down or frozen. He was able to comprehend this kind of divine ability, because he had seen through many things and understood many things. Swish. Swish. Lu Qianqian drew her sword, and an extremely cold light appeared. Bang bang. Pung pung pung. Thousands of ice sculpture-like soldiers were instantly cut into pieces, and then scattered in the frozen null domain. Awesome. Su Xiaoma gave her a thumbs up and thought to himself, eldest senior sister has really gotten over it. First it was the Taishan old man. Then it was Elder Wei. Now he was saying something that was hard to understand. Could it be that there was something that Go Sheng and everyone else did not know? Let's not talk about that for now. The most important thing was to retreat. Swish. Lu Qianqian flew over with her sword in hand. As she moved, the fixed null domain began to spread forward. Retreat. A deputy general roared. Ka ka ka. As soon as he finished speaking, the null domain had already spread under his feet. His body was quickly stuck with ice shards, and his mobility was greatly reduced. In the end, he was completely frozen. Swish. A sword light flew over, and a head fell to the ground. Lu Qianqian pressed the tip of her sword against the ice and walked toward the enemy step by step. It could be said that one person could stop 10,000 people. Damn it. Yu Shuai was furious. It was one thing for this woman to wear his armor, but she even killed his subordinates without any scruples. If he could tolerate this, what could he tolerate? Break her ice rink. Yes. Swish. 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 Hundreds of Flying Tiger Army soldiers landed on the path that the null domain had to pass through. They all made strange hand seals and opened their hands. They stuck out their heads and spat out hot flames from their mouths. Sixth baby was here. How could fourth baby be missing? But this was too much. Whoosh whoosh. The flames that everyone spat out gathered together, and formed a sea of fire that pressed down on the null domain. Obviously, they wanted to solve the problem with the simplest principle of water and fire. Water could carry a boat, but it could also cook porridge. Similarly, when the heat of the fire reached the extreme, it could also restrain both ice and water. However, Lu Qianqian's extreme cold attribute was very terrifying. Even if the rolling flames pressed down, she was not affected. Instead, she became even colder under the stimulation of the high temperature. So cold that all the hot flames that pressed down were frozen. Oh my god! Su Xiaoma was shocked. The fire is frozen. Jun Changshao was delighted. My eldest disciple must have broken through. Let's not talk about this first. Retreating from the enemy was the most important thing. Ka-ka. Ka-ka. Not only were the flames that surged over frozen, but they also spread along the source. The fourth baby that was spitting fire did not have time to shut up, and was frozen on the spot. This woman. Yu Shuai frowned. To be able to freeze the flames, she must be very strong. If the soldiers continued to charge, they would be sending themselves to death. Hence he ordered, "Everyone retreat." Swish, swish. The soldiers that were hesitating whether to continue charging heard the order and retreated to the back. They were so fast that they were afraid that they would be frozen if they were slow. The Flying Tiger army surrendered just like that? No. When all the soldiers retreated safely, Yu Shuai raised his hand. A pitch-black halberd appeared out of thin air. Then he jumped over and landed at the edge of the region. Ka. The cold air was blocked and could not spread forward at all. Lu Qianqian did not continue to strengthen the spreading force. She looked indifferently at the woman in front of her who was wearing the same type of armor. "Qianqian," Jun Changxiao said, "take her down. Capture the leader first." As long as this woman was dealt with, the Flying Tiger army would be useless. Huff. Hearing the patriarch's words, Lu Qianqian did not answer. The words engraved on the back of her hand were activated. Her black hair seemed to be covered by snow and gradually turned silver white. Everyone in the same sect knew that eldest senior sister's hair would turn this color after activating the special effects of the words. But now that she was wearing the black armor, her hair was as white as snow. The change in her temperament was really earth-shattering. Pretending to be mysterious, Yu Shuai sneered. The next second his eyes shrank and he hurriedly bent back. Whoosh, the cold sword energy swept past her body. Although it did not hit the target, it killed dozens of Flying Tiger army soldiers in the distance. Seeing this, everyone hurriedly raised their shields. Die. Yu Shuai adjusted her body and stabbed the heavy halberd in her hand at a strange angle. Judging from the explosive power, her strength should not be weaker than Yin. The commander of the Flying Tiger army was definitely one of the higher-ups. Of course, she did not have the ability to turn invisible. Her specialty was not her cultivation, but her ability to command. The Star Spirit realm had launched so many invasions, and most of the wars were personally led by this woman. She was beautiful. She could lead troops to war. She was definitely the model of a main character's harem. Unfortunately, she met Jun Changxiao. The two of them were destined to have no emotional interaction. The result of being her enemy was either death, or being reduced to a tool. Boom boom. Boom boom boom. In the null domain, Yu Shuai waved her halberd and continuously broke through layers of ice walls. Although she was a woman, she erupted with extremely strong combat power. Lu Qianqian's two fingers kept mobilizing the ice attribute, forming an absolute defense in front of her. However, from the way she kept retreating, it was obvious that she was a little weak. Of course, since Yu Shuai was on the same level as Yin, then for a powerhouse of this level, it would at least require Jun Changxiao or Jian Guixiu to take action. It would be a bit difficult for a core disciple to fight. Go Sheng realized and was ready to find an opportunity to enter the battlefield. Die. Right at this moment, Yu Shuai leaped up and poured all the strength in her body into the halberd. This blow shattered the space, shattered the ice layer on the ground, and even shattered the null domain formed by Lu Qianqian. The latter suffered a backlash and her face instantly turned pale. Chance. Jun Changxiao's eyes turned cold, and was about to rush out of the tower. However, just as he lifted his foot, he came to an abrupt stop. His eyes and mouth gradually widened. In his field of vision, the pale-faced Lu Qianqian gave up resisting. Rolling cold air emerged from her body, and gradually condensed into a huge figure. She said in a sacred voice, "This world was born in ice and snow, and it will also end in ice and snow." Huff huff, in an instant, the entire battlefield was filled with cold air, and covered in ice and snow. The figure standing behind Lu Qianqian had materialized. It was a woman wrapped in thick layers of ice. Her face was very white, and her eyes were filled with coldness. Even a glance at her gave off a bone-chilling feeling. This is... Li Qingyang and the others found her familiar until they remembered seeing her on the wall of the secret realm. They exclaimed in unison, "SSS level heroic soul." Chapter 1928. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Whoosh. The woman wrapped in ice stood in front of Lu Qianqian. Not only did she exude a holy aura, but she also exuded an extremely cold aura. At that moment, the whole world seemed to have entered a harsh winter. Li Qingyang and the others saw this and immediately remembered that there was a portrait of this woman on the wall in the secret realm that represented an SSS-level heroic soul, surrounded by ice and snow. SSS-level heroic soul? Jun Changshao held his chin and said, "There's an ice-type god in the Chinese mythological system?" Although he couldn't enter the secret realm, he learned from his disciples that the highest SSS-level heroic soul should be at the level of gods, such as the great sage, heaven's equal. Why not? The system said. Isn't snow goddess Tenglu one? Tenglu? Jun Changshao was speechless. I've never heard of it. Chung Dingji's Young Jasper Forest Astronomy chapter recorded that Master Yun is Feng Long, and snow goddess is Tenglu, the system explained. Fuck. Jun Changshao curled his lips. You must have Googled. Of course. The system spoke in a straightforward manner. After interacting with the host for a long time, it had also become shameless. This meant that shamelessness was contagious. Did the readers who followed it until now have great achievements in shamelessness? Boom. While Jun Changshao and the system were talking, Yu Shuai waved his halberd and smashed it down. A strong wave of air spread across the battlefield, shattering the ice layer and causing the air to be filled with debris, like the morning mist. Li Qingyang and the others hurriedly looked over. They were worried about their senior sister. However, when the camera panned to Lu Qianqian, they saw the ice woman behind her spread out her hands, and layers of ice walls hung in the air, successfully blocking the powerful halberd. Kid, you're too weak. A soft voice like mixed with electricity sounded on the battlefield. Although it was warm on the surface, it was extremely cold. Everyone couldn't help but shiver. Whoosh. Yu Shuai used the force to retreat and landed at the position where he jumped. He frowned, and the hand holding the halberd felt numb. He had gathered 90% of his strength in the attack just now, but it didn't shake the seemingly temporary ice wall. Wang. Space trembled and cold air erupted. Not good. Boom. The area where Yu Shuai was standing suddenly exploded with dense ice flowers, and she staggered back a few steps, the halberd in her hand almost flying out. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. A moment later, the ice flowers exploded one after another. Because it was too sudden and too fast, Li Qingyang and the others were bewildered. They had no idea what kind of attack the other party had suffered. Jun Changshao was able to catch it. That was the ice attribute energy that had suddenly condensed in the extreme cold region. It had suddenly exploded and was impossible to guard against. At this time Lu Qianqian, who was forcibly suppressing her internal injuries, moved. Cold air spread out from her feet, once again plating the ground with a thicker layer of ice. The summoned SSS rank heroic soul moved as well. Its feet left the ground and it floated like a ghost. Crack! Crack! A frosty aura emanated from Lu Qianqian's palm, and quickly wrapped around the 3-foot-long sword, making it look even sharper. Yu Shuai's expression changed slightly. She was not afraid of the disciples of the sect of all times, but she was afraid of the unfathomable and godlike existence behind her. Retreat. Leave this place. Thinking of this, Yu Shuai turned around and fled without another word. The patriarch said that he wants to take you down. Lu Qianqian raised her hand gently and said with a cold gaze, so there's no way out. Buzz. The heroic soul behind her disappeared into thin air. Crack crack. At the end of the null region, which was where Yu Shuai was fleeing, the surrounding ice suddenly trembled and immediately merged into the ice lady. She crossed her hands and chanted. Whoosh. Whoosh. A cold wind blew, and snowflakes fluttered. Yu Shuai's expression changed because the snowflakes that seemed to be falling turned into sharp icicles halfway, and flew toward her. Swish swish swish. Swish swish swish. The snowflakes fell like knives at an extremely fast speed. Every snowflake contained extremely sharp sword energy. After the sudden acceleration, they cut through space and left marks. Jian Guishu's expression was grave. That ice lady was really a bit scary. Even from the moment she appeared until now, it was like a cat playing with a mouse. 8 Baron Sweep. Yu Shuai would not sit still and wait for death. When she rushed over, she suddenly waved her halberd and poured her spiritual energy into it. It rolled up a gorgeous light in midair, trying to resolve the falling snow blades. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Light flickered, and energy surged. Yu Shuai's strength was strong, but in the face of the dense snow blades, the final result was to break one piece after another. Poochie. Poochie. The snow blade was incomparably sharp. It left a mark on the battle armor. When the wind stopped and the snow stopped, the fragmentary domain became a vast expanse of whiteness. Puff. Yu Shuai spat out a mouthful of blood. The camera zoomed out, and she was half kneeling with one hand holding her halberd. Her face, shoulders, chest, back, and legs were all small knife marks. Blood seeped out from them and splashed on the snow-white ground. Seeing the armor was so damaged, Fan Yezi shook his head and said, "What a pity." The problem was not too big. As long as she could get it back, she should be able to repair it. Rustle, rustle. The sound of stepping on snow could be heard. Lu Qianqian stopped in front of Yu Shuai, grabbed her hair and lifted her up, and said, "Take it off yourself, or do you want me to help you?" Yu Shuai's face became paler. The dense snowblade attack just now had caused her too much damage. At this moment, it was almost equivalent to losing her fighting strength. In fact, even if she could, she would not dare to fight back. Very simple, the floating ice girl's strength was far above her. If she did not deliberately show mercy, she would have been cut into pieces. "I'll help you." Lu Qianqian raised her sword, and a shadow appeared. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others hurriedly turned their heads. Jun Changxiao did not turn his head. Instead, he looked very carefully until the armor was taken off. Only then did he lean on the back of the chair and smile. Comfortable. Don't misunderstand. Although Yu Shuai's armor was taken off, she was definitely still wearing clothes, so? Bullshit. The system roared. The armor has been cut. How can the underwear inside be intact? Wouldn't it be broken into pieces? Yu Shuai. Outside the region, the Flying Tiger Army soldiers were in grief. Boss was captured. What should they do? Retreat. A deputy general was still calm and immediately shouted. Without a commander, the army had lost its backbone. The best way was to retreat quickly to preserve their strength. Qianqian. Jun Changxiao stood up and ordered. Take them all down. Whoosh. Lu Qianqian flew over, and the cold air around her quickly spread to the distant mountain peak. She said, "Move the mountain." Rumble. Rumble. The mountain peaks were uprooted like trees. Seal the mountain. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Dozens of mountains flew over quickly, carried by the cold air, and landed around the soldiers of the Flying Tiger Army who were trying to escape, forming a sealed valley with no way out. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The cold air spread from the mountains like a rolling flood, instantly filling the valley. The soldiers in the valley did not even have the chance to blink, and turned into lifelike ice sculptures. At this point, the Flying Tiger Army and their commander were all dead. Not bad, not bad. Jun Changxiao laughed with his hands on his hips. When Lu Qianqian returned with the enemy commander, he was about to ask when she said, "I will go back first." Go Sheng was left in place. "All right. This disciple of mine is still very unique." The Taishian old man, Elder Wei, and Su Xiaoma looked at Lu Qianqian at the same time and said in a low voice, "She has really gotten over it." Gotten over what? Jun Changxiao suddenly appeared in the middle of the three, and asked with a blank face. "That's right. What exactly did she get over it?" Chapter 1929. Creek. In the Tianyuan prison pagoda level prison, Yu Shuai was thrown into a cell. Yin, who lived next door, saw an old acquaintance, and his expression immediately became interesting. This was the commander of the Flying Tiger Army. Why did he come in? Could it be that the situation in the star spirit world was not good? He actually had the mind to care about this problem. It seemed that the prison trio did not care enough for him. Another one with decent strength came in. Zhang San, who lived opposite, sat cross-legged on the bed and said excitedly, "Could it be that Jun Patriarch is the one who changed the world?" This guy was quite pitiful. Ever since he confessed, although he had not been cared for, he had been locked in prison, and could not see the day when he would be released. It was not that Jun Changshao was deliberately making things difficult for him, but he was afraid that he would run away again. As a talent who could see the future, he had to be controlled first. Who knew he might come in handy in the future? No. Zhang San said, I have to deduce again. Buzz. Buzz. He took out the oracle bones, copper coins, and other items and scattered them on the 5 elements 8 trigrams plate. Then he put his hands together and chanted. Heavenly Eye, open. After a while, 2 fingers were placed on his forehead. Whoosh, an eye similar to Erling Shun's appeared between his eyebrows, flashing with a special light and suddenly merging into the void. At that moment, Zhang San quivered as if he had been electrocuted. His entire body was stunned, and his soul flew into the distance with the spirit of time and space, flying into the future. He could be considered an old hand in this kind of thing. However, what surprised him was that after his soul passed through the layers of folded space under the protection of the spirit of time and space, what he saw was chaos and hazy. What's going on? Zhang San was a little dumbfounded. In the past, whenever he did not hesitate to consume his lifespan to peek into the future, he could always see the scene he wanted, but this time, there was nothing. He vaguely remembered that when the Sky Devil Emperor first started to wreak havoc in the upper universe, he had risked his life to do the most comprehensive deduction. The scene he saw was the collapse of heaven and earth, the destruction of living beings, and the entire universe seemed to be experiencing the end of the world. However, at the most desperate moment, there was suddenly a righteous light shining on the earth. Gradually, Zhang San saw a figure walking out from the light, exuding a majestic aura. Later on, in the next few deductions, he could always see the figure whose face was hard to see. He could see him confronting the celestial devil emperor. He could see him destroying the heaven and earth with a raise of his hand. He could see him changing the rules of the heavenly Tao and changing the order of the heavenly Tao. Zhang San was deeply shocked. If one had to use a word to describe it, it would be God. He was definitely someone who could change the structure of the upper universe. Actually, Zhang San had already deduced this long ago, but he was unable to see the appearance clearly, so he was unable to determine who it was and when it would appear. However, he was already used to seeing figures in the future. This time, he had sacrificed his lifespan to continue divining, but he did not see anything. It was inevitable that he would be dumbfounded. Boom. Boom. Right at this moment, the sound of collisions came from the hazy space, forcing the entire area to gradually bend and distort. Zhang San seemed to have realized something and exclaimed, an unforeseen event has occurred in the future. Buzz, suddenly, a force pressed down from all directions, and the soul that existed in the future was instantly shattered. Wow. Zhang San spat out a mouthful of blood, but his eyes were filled with shock. Space was distorted. Heaven and earth were in chaos. Wasn't this the sign of the future being changed that Master had mentioned before? It's over. Something big has happened. The fear in Zhang San's eyes grew stronger. Everything that happened in the future, no matter how much of a spoiler it was, would never change. Now that there was a sudden change that he could not see, who knew what would happen in the future? Because he knew, he was calm. Now that he was at a loss, he was afraid of the unknown. Moreover, intuition told Zhang San that the change in the future was definitely man-made. Who? Sky Devil Emperor? Zhang San hurriedly withdrew this crazy thought, because if it was really that guy who changed, the future would probably be the same as what he had just seen. Space would collapse, the heavenly Tao would be in chaos, and all living beings would be annihilated. Dai Lu stood outside the cell, puzzled. Why is this guy vomiting blood? Maybe he hasn't been cared for a while, Xiao Daoda said. If that's the case, Dai Lu said, then show some care. Pa. While the two were talking, Zhang San leaned against the railing, his head popping out of the crack, almost squeezing his whole body out. He shouted, I want to see Jun Patriarch, I have something big to tell him. Something big? Dai Lu and Xiao Daodu looked at each other. Sect of all times. The tens of thousands of captured Flying Tiger Army soldiers were all locked in special cells. They were not all sent to Tianyuan Prison Pagoda, because they could not withstand so many warriors. Some people had been questioning that the Barricade Soul Pagoda was too powerful, suppressing all kinds of big shots. In fact, that was not the case. All the prisoners who were sent here were either injured or under absolute control. Not to mention area, even an ordinary martial artist could deal with them in their current state. If the other party was in full condition, he could not even let Jun Changshao put his head in, because the defense of the Barricade Soul Pagoda could not withstand a high-level warrior with full cultivation. In short, the more you felt that the Barricade Soul Pagoda was too buggy, the more it proved that the prisoners had received enough care before they were sent in. Come on, brothers. MC Gosheng raised his phone, his face in front of Zhang San, and shouted at the friends watching the live broadcast, "Whoever doubts in the comments, I will torture this guy 10 times, and guarantee that he will always be in a weak state. Here you go. Thank you to Jianghu goodbye little Gigi for the plane. Thank you to Jianghu goodbye ancestral staff for the rocket. Speak." Jun Changshao sat in the main hall, his fingers interlocked, and said, "What have you seen through?" Su Xiaoma was about to cry. There were some things that Grand Elder and Elder Wei also knew. Why didn't the Patriarch ask them? Why did he ask me? Patriarch, Su Xiaoma said with a serious expression. I promised senior sister to keep it a secret. Nonsense. Jun Changshao said. If you can keep it a secret, pigs can climb trees. Su Xiaoma was very sad. Could it be that in the eyes of the Patriarch he didn't keep his mouth shut? Yes. Sigh. Su Xiaoma sighed, and his thoughts went back to the past. About a year ago he couldn't remember the specific time. That day, he went to the medical hall after cultivating as usual to talk to Elder Wei about relationship problems. To be exact, they were going to work together on a book called Love Bible. The sect of all times didn't restrict the disciples from pursuing love, but there were so many people in the sect, and only a few of them were single. As the third senior brother, Su Xiaoma was very sad, and decided to combine his experience and Elder Wei's profession to help them successfully find their other halves. However, when he came to the study he saw senior sister. Just as he was about to go in and greet her, he heard Elder Wei say, "The person you can't forget in your heart is the Patriarch." Su Xiaoma immediately realized that there was a problem, so he held his breath and quietly leaned against the door to eavesdrop. Yes, Lu Qianqian said. It was very difficult to say this word. That day, the woman who was always cold and unsociable said a lot, and Su Xiaoma also heard a lot, and he was shocked in his heart. This is a big thing, and it overturns everything I know. Creak. Suddenly, Lu Qianqian pushed the door open and walked out. She didn't leave immediately but looked in the direction where Su Xiaoma hid, and said with a cold face, "Senior sister, I hope you can keep it a secret." Su Xiaoma didn't answer, because he had been frozen into a statue, and only when he was automatically defrosted did he say with a trembling voice, Senior sister, I will keep it a secret." Chapter 1930. Many people didn't believe that Su Xiaoma would keep it a secret. In fact, he did it. He didn't say anything he had heard. It was hard on him. He couldn't hold it in. Back to Lu Qianqian. What on earth happened? In a word, she opened her eyes. The so-called less screen time and closed-door cultivation were just excuses. The real reason was that she deliberately avoided Jun Changshao. In fact, Lu Qianqian had been very tangled and painful during this period. She even had her mind disturbed, because of all kinds of worries. She wanted to change, so she went to the Taishan old man. Senior, I want to comprehend the higher level of Taishan ice heart technique. The Taishan old man was silent. This ice mental cultivation method was created by him in the Falling Star continent. It was limited to thinking and comprehension. How could he give her any guidance? To put it bluntly, the creator of the mental cultivation method was far less proficient than the successor. Child, the Taishan old man said, although I created the Taishan ice heart technique, you have already achieved a higher level. If you want to comprehend the higher level, I can't help you. You have to rely on yourself. Lu Qianqian said, Senior, you have left the state of heart like still water. I have studied it for so many years, but I still can't see the main point. Because you have fallen in love. In this regard, the Taishan old man could still help. He even discovered it in the early years, but he never pointed it out. Senior, do you mean that I can only comprehend heart like still water if I cut off my feelings? The Taishan old man was speechless. This girl's way of thinking was a bit special. Child, the Taishan old man said, there are love, family, and friendship in this world. How can we, as ordinary people, cut them off so easily? In fact, the heart like still water that was left in the secret book was just a vague concept that he put forward. He himself had never achieved it. This was equivalent to a teacher leaving a question that even he didn't understand, and letting the later generation solve it by their own ability. Just set the question. Others were responsible for solving the question. Whether it was solved correctly or not, there was no way to judge. Fuck. Lu Qianqian didn't get the answer she wanted, so she left the array formation hall and went to the medical hall. She didn't want to be too entangled with heart like still water. She only cared about how to solve this problem. Elder Wei. He should be able to give an answer. This led to the scene where Su Xiaoma overheard the conversation between the two of them. Elder Wei. It's hard for me to forget someone. In the past, there were some things that Lu Qianqian wouldn't say out loud, but as she became more and more integrated into the sect, she had already made the most fundamental change. The man you can't forget is the patriarch. As expected of a relationship expert, Elder Wei hit the nail on the head. Others might not have noticed, but he had long noticed Lu Qianqian. Especially after Rose of Flowers came to the sect. She would always deliberately avoid him. This was already very obvious. Yes, Lu Qianqian admitted it. Since she was here, she hoped to solve the problem. You are the first disciple of the patriarch, and you are about the same age. It's normal for you to have feelings for each other after many years of contact, Elder Wei said. I want to forget the patriarch. Elder Wei, do you have a way? Lu Qianqian asked. Elder Wei said, it may be easy to love someone, but it's very difficult to forget someone. What should I do? Lu Qianqian lowered her head. She seemed to be asking Elder Wei, but in fact, she was also asking herself why she couldn't get rid of it after so many years. She tried. She cultivated almost crazily and tried to avoid it as much as possible. But once the seed of emotion was buried in the heart, it would take root and sprout over time. If she couldn't forget, she would be even more annoyed. The more annoyed she was, the more confused she was. Lu Qianqian, who was still cold and arrogant on the outside, was actually like a little girl who sold matches, curled up alone in the ice and snow. Everyone could see that the recent chapters were focused on her. Naturally, they also hoped to give this disciple a perfect ending as much as possible before the main storyline came. Learn to forget. Elder Wei taught her a way. It was easy to say, but it was difficult for the person involved to do it. In fact, there was no good way. After all, in name, Lu Qianqian and Jun Changshao were disciple and patriarch. Strictly speaking, they were master and disciple. Moreover, there was also Rose of Flowers, who had already married the patriarch. In the martial arts world, it was normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. However, Elder Wei didn't think that Lu Qianqian, who had a cold personality, would be able to accept it. Especially the patriarch, whose EQ had been kicked by a donkey, wouldn't have such thoughts. So, the best way was to quit early, Elder Wei said. If you can't cut the Gordian knot with a quick knife, it will inevitably become more complicated in the future. It's already a mess. Lu Qianqian said bitterly. She didn't get any substantial help, so she left rather dejectedly. During this time, she specially instructed Su Xiaoma, who was eavesdropping, to keep it a secret. In fact, it didn't matter whether it was a secret or not, because any disciple with intelligence more or less felt it. It was just that they were afraid of being frozen, and didn't dare to say it. Senior sister. She was still very intimidating in the sect. Sigh. Watching the girl leave, Elder Wei shook his head and said, Love really doesn't distinguish one's character. Those who should be affected will still be affected. Elder Wei. Su Xiaoma walked over and said, "Senior sister, can you let it go?" "Don't ask me, I don't know." After returning from the medical hall, Lu Qianqian locked herself in her room for several days. Lu Wanshi and Yao Minjing had come several times, but they couldn't call her out. "Senior sister Lu." Yao Minjing was puzzled. What's wrong with senior sister? She should be cultivating in seclusion. Although Lu Wanshi explained it this way, she was actually muttering in her heart. Was she thinking about the patriarch again? Even the hall master of the Imperial Cuisine Hall, who in the entire sect couldn't see through it. Yes, Jun Changxiao. Night came. Lu Qianqian sat in front of the window, her hands hugging her legs and her chin resting on her knees. Her bright eyes looked at the moon in the sky with a complicated expression. The camera slowly moved down and locked onto the bracelet on her wrist. This was the ice bracelet that Jun Changxiao gave to his disciple when she went to the Life and Death Valley to train. Now that her realm had increased, it had lost its effect long ago, but she still didn't throw it into the spatial ring. Elder Wei is right. Lu Qianqian murmured. I have to learn to forget. Creak. The next day, the door was pushed open. Yao Minjing, who happened to pass by, saw this and said happily, "Senior sister, you're in seclusion." Her words stopped abruptly, because although Lu Qianqian was still cold, there was a very subtle change. What changed she couldn't say. Until her gaze landed on her empty wrist, she said in surprise, "Senior sister, where's the bracelet?" "I accidentally broke it," Lu Qianqian said. "Ah." Yao Minjing widened her eyes and said, "So careless?" Lu Qianqian didn't explain too much. She went to the cafeteria to eat as usual and entered the ice layer of the ninth heaven secret realm to start cultivating. Maybe it was because of the night's thinking, or maybe it was because she didn't have the bracelet, but her mind was calm. After practicing the Taishian Ice Heart formula, she found a mystery that she had never discovered before. The cultivation process was very boring. Occasionally, things that she didn't want to think of would flash through her mind. Lu Qianqian could suppress them very well. Her heart that was still warm gradually cooled down, and she slowly integrated into another realm. It was a world of ice and snow. There were many mirrors made of ice. Lu Qianqian sat in the center with her legs crossed, and countless reflections of herself were reflected. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, for days, she didn't know how much time had passed. When she had some kind of enlightenment here, when she opened her eyes, all the mirrors around her had shattered, and she was the only one left in the whole world. I understand now. Lu Qianqian muttered to herself. Her once turbulent state of mind was firmer than before. Other than coldness, there was no other expression on her face. Later, she left the ninth heaven secret realm and went to the heavenly might secret realm. There, she defeated 2 kinds of heroic souls and chose an SSS-level heroic soul. Whoosh! A woman covered in ice appeared and stood opposite Lu Qianqian like a god. She said impatiently, "Girl, why are you here again? You once said that my state of mind was unstable, and that it was difficult for me to comprehend the profound meaning of ice." Lu Qianqian said, "Now I'm here to tell you the ice in my heart will no longer melt." Whoosh! Whoosh! The sky was filled with coldness from her body, as if the entire area was frozen. The woman of ice said in surprise, "It seems that not long ago, you actually comprehended some kind of profound meaning of ice. Fine. If you agree to bet, you must accept defeat. My snow god Tinglu will sign a contract with you." Look, the system roared at the top of its lungs. I didn't guess wrong, did I? Chapter 1931. In the main hall of the sect of all times, Jun Changxiao clasped his fingers together and fell into silence. Patriarch. Su Xiaoma said seriously, "I promised senior sister to keep it a secret, but I didn't do it in the end." "You may leave," Jun Changxiao said. "Yes." Su Xiaoma turned and left. When he walked out of the main hall, he felt a sense of relief in his heart. The emotions that he had been suppressing were finally released. Some things could be left unsaid, but some things must be said, even if he had to bear the crime of being a blabbermouth. Senior sister. Su Xiaoma looked up at the sky and said, "If you really get over it, you won't blame junior brother, right?" Sigh. Jun Changxiao leaned on the chair and sighed helplessly. It was rare that the system did not jump out to complain, because it knew that the host's heart was in a mess again. Hall Master Shui. Jun Changxiao stood up and shouted. Shui Ringgui hurried over and saw the patriarch's serious expression. He was puzzled and said, "What's the situation?" Jun Changxiao walked down and stood in front of the sand table that represented the star spirit world. He pointed at the cities inside and said coldly, "Take down this plane and save all the corpse servants." Yes. The eternal world suddenly became lively. Battleships and mechas started one after another. All the warriors in the plane were mobilized. When Jun Changxiao took over the Great Heaven City, this scene was destined to happen, but it came a little earlier than before. No way. Seeing this, the demon ancestor said in shock, ready to attack. Hall Master. An Avenger hurried to report. Jun Patriarch just gave the order that we Avenger must cooperate with General Shui. Sure enough. The demon ancestor said with a serious face. It's really begun. When Jun Changxiao took over the Great Heaven City, he realized that the other party had a very big plan. He might even use this place as a stronghold, and then start to take over the entire star spirit world. Come, play. The demon ancestor was not a person who knew his place. Since Jun Changxiao wanted to play so boldly, he would definitely cooperate to the end. Buzz. Buzz. Thousands of battleships and hundreds of thousands of Diablo appeared in the sky above the Great Heaven City. The scale was massive, and the aura they exuded was enough to shatter the heavens. Ta-ta-ta. Millions of the Devil Army and millions of Avengers stood on the drill ground, fully armed. The War Cavalry Hall's Vice Hall Master, Tao Yuan, began to distribute the teams and the detailed attack route. When everything was ready, Jun Changxiao, who was sitting on the city gate tower, said, "We must break through all the nearby cities within a day." Yes. Their voices shook the mountains and rivers. Move out. Swish. Swish. The Sect of all times immediately split up and attacked the nearest city. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others also participated. They were divided into various teams, and their task was to assist in the siege. Kill. Kill. Not long after, various forces arrived at their destination one after another, and began to attack the cities of the star spirit world at the fastest speed possible. Why did he say Godspeed? Because Jun Changxiao had given them a day, they only used 2 hours. Most of the cities have been breached. Big Law City has been breached. Big Hill City has been breached. Big Dream City has been breached. Li Luoqiu continued to report the good news that had been delivered from various places. Very good. Jun Changxiao was satisfied. These 4 cities were in special positions and could form an iron bucket when combined. Now that they had taken them down, they would have the absolute initiative in both offense and defense. Pass down the order. Jun Changxiao said. Quickly set up the teleportation array and connect the 4 cities. Yes. The members of the array hall who were working with the 4 groups received the order to set up the teleportation array in the 4 cities as soon as possible, so that when one side was in trouble, all sides would come to help. The attack was still ongoing. The other forces continued to attack the cities further away. From God's perspective, the army of the Sect of all time split into more than 10 groups, with Big Sky City as the center point, spreading in all directions. As the surrounding cities were breached one after another, the color of Gosheng's territory on the sand table gradually expanded. In just one day, the Sect of all times, which originally only had Big Sky City, had taken over more than 40 cities. This kind of rapid large-scale attack left the astral spirit world powerless to fight back. By the time they recovered, many cities had already been taken. Not long after, the upper echelons of the astral spirit world were furious. In their view, the people who breached Big Sky City were nothing more than a small-scale rebellion. Now it was a full-fledged large-scale rebellion. They must be severely punished and suppressed. In a short period of time, the astral spirit world mobilized troops from various cities and sent top powerhouses to help. This upper plane was completely chaotic. The thick smell of war drifted in the air and blew far away with the wind. Report. In the military camp of Big Sky City, a subordinate came to report, "The enemy is attacking." Hiwudi sat at the head of the table and rubbed his temples with a headache. At this moment, not only was he wearing armor, but he was also a real general. The attack on Big Sky City was also under his command. The army of the Sect of all times was led by Shui Rengui and Tao Yuan. The generals who were sent out were naturally replaced by the core disciples. The commander-in-chief in Big Sky City was Xiao Ziji, and the commander-in-chief in Big Hill City was Su Xiaomo. It could be said that as long as one was a core disciple, they would basically be guarding a region. Hiwudi did not want to be so high profile, but military orders were as important as mountains. He could only reluctantly put on his armor and go into battle. Love what you do. Since the patriarch had handed this city to him, and planned to use it as a stronghold to continue attacking the major cities of the astral spirit world, he had to submit a satisfactory answer. Fight! Hiwudi strode out and stood on top of the city gate tower. Outside the city, hundreds of thousands of enemy troops were gathered. The commander-in-chief was a higher-up of the astral spirit world. A divine secret who came with the team landed in front of the formation and shouted into the city, "Fight me one-on-one if you have the guts." One-on-one. Hiwudi flew out and stood on the battlefield. He moved his head and said, "I'll satisfy you." Boom. Boom. The intense and exciting battle began. As the most powerful disciple in the Sect of all times, Hiwudi's strength did not need to be explained. Therefore, he directly stated the result, which was to beat the opponent until he was foaming at the mouth and twitching on the ground. Attack. Seeing this, the enemy commander hurriedly ordered the army to attack the city. Hiwudi dragged the fainted astral spirit world expert and slowly turned around. He faced the tide of soldiers and said, "You're all here to die." Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Under the setting sun, the corpses on the battlefield were piled up like mountains. Hiwudi sat at the top with his fingers interlocked. His black hair danced in the wind, revealing his low-key face. "The city I'm guarding. Even if an immortal comes, he won't be able to break it." Similar scenes played out in the other cities. The astral spirit world tried to take back the cities that had been seized. In the end, they repeatedly sent troops over, but they were all annihilated. Jun Changshao would not give them a chance to attack again. After resting for a few days, he ordered the troops to continue devouring the other regions. Half a month later, Go Sheng inserted a flag into a city. When the camera slowly zoomed out, nearly a quarter of the cities in the sand table representing the astral spirit world had chess pieces inserted. Patriarch Shui Rengui said, "According to the current progress, we can take down the entire plane in a few months." Sigh. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "I thought this plane would be very troublesome. I didn't expect it to be so weak." The demon ancestor's mouth twitched. "This plane was originally very troublesome, but you and your sect are completely devils." Chapter 1932. The forces of the Sect of all times were unstoppable, and the cities of the astral spirit world were conquered one after another. After another month, the Great Sky region and the Great Moon region fell one after another, and the corpse servants who were treated as slaves all regained their freedom and followed the trend to become avengers. The forces of the Sect of all times alone could bring trouble to the astral spirit world, but they needed time. As more and more avengers joined in, the pace of devouring would only become faster and faster. Without a doubt, if there was no fierce man from the heavens, the fall of this dimension would be irreversible. In terms of the top level, there were Jun Changshao and Jian Guixiu. In terms of the middle level, there were the upper echelons and core disciples of the Sect of all times. Many nobles also realized this, and every time they heard that the rebel army was about to attack, they would pack up and flee. Those in charge would run away. The soldiers guarding the city would not risk their lives. The army of the Sect of all times, which was already unstoppable, conquered more and more cities almost effortlessly, and the area they occupied continued to expand. Abandonment and escape usually happened in small and medium-sized cities. The large cities were more stubborn, and they actively strengthened their defenses, choosing to fight to the end. Jun Changshao did his best to fulfill their righteousness toward such actions. Boom. Boom. The capital of the Great Ling region experienced countless attacks, and the city protection array supported by tens of thousands of formation masters finally could not hold on any longer, and finally shattered into pieces. Woo! The bugle horn sounded, and the vanguard group led by Zhong Yi charged into the city. 10 minutes later, the enemy soldiers were all killed, and the city walls, towers, and streets were filled with corpses, and the air was filled with a pungent stench. Why bother? Jun Changshao sat on the city tower and shook his head. In the face of absolute power, they still wanted to resist, which was a little foolish. After all, this is their home, the system said. Their home is defended with their lives, but other people's home is trampled on with violence. Jun Changshao admired the enemy soldiers who sacrificed themselves for their home, but he did not have any sympathy, because protecting one's home and country was worthy of praise, but harming others in the past was unforgivable. There was such a city in the astral spirit world, and it was very developed with a large population. There were many advanced technologies around the city walls, and warships floated outside, forming layers of defense. That was right. This was the main city, Star Spirit City. Some readers wondered if the main city of the Jianghu world was called Jianghu City. Congratulations, you got it right. Within the luxurious palace at the center of the city, the noble families, who were usually high and mighty, were in complete chaos. During this period of time, 3 out of the 10 provinces had been taken down, and the situation was extremely dangerous. Damn it! Who the hell is this? One of the higher-ups said angrily. At this moment, according to the information sent back from various sources, they had a rough understanding that it was not just the zombies who were rebelling. There was also a group of even stronger forces, so strong that no matter what army they sent, it would be a waste of time. Your Highness, an old man said solemnly, if this continues, the star spirit world will completely fall. Everyone looked at the man who was sitting on the throne with his head lowered, and didn't say a word. This person was the highest commander of the star spirit world. Logically speaking, the ruler of a plane was usually referred to as the realm lord. Why was he referred to as the commander? This was because the star spirit world had not had a sector lord for a very long time. Even the head of the highest organization was only called Hall Master. Activate the array. After a while, the Hall Master raised his head and said unwillingly, inform the Emperor to send reinforcements. If you hesitate any longer, the entire star spirit world will be gone. The Hall Master roared angrily. He looked very young, but his anger had already distorted his entire face to the extreme. At first glance, he looked like a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s. Seeing this, the higher-ups fell silent. At present, the group of rebels was tyrannical, and they were fighting on multiple fronts. If they did not ask for reinforcements, the star spirit world would definitely fall in a short period of time. The world was gone. How could they explain to the Emperor? Buzz. Buzz. On the same day, on the huge altar behind the gorgeous palace, array masters were drawing the array core. After a few days of hard work, they drew an extremely complicated array. Plop. Plop. One by one, the bound zombies knelt in a specific position in the array, and then lowered their heads. Their eyes were filled with fear as they said hoarsely, "No. No. Soul sacrifice, summon the Emperor." An old man who looked like a priest knelt in the center of the array, and slowly raised the staff in his hand. Poochie. Poochie. Streaks of sword light flashed, and the zombies' heads fell to the ground. The souls that escaped from their bodies were tightly bound to the fixed array core, and then used as energy to start driving the array. Whoosh. Whoosh. In an instant, dozens of streams of light flew up from the altar. They carried a gorgeous color, and merged into the sky as if they were going to penetrate heaven and earth. Jun Changshao, who was watching the battle outside the city of the fourth state, looked up at the strange rising in the distance and wondered, "What's that?" "I don't know," the fiend ancestor said. Streams of light suddenly appeared in the star spirit world. Other than the core higher-ups, no one knew what was going on. "Hurry up and break the city." Jun Changshao did not think much of it, and continued to command the army to attack the city. Yes, the disciples and the Avengers were like stimulants as they kept attacking the major cities. After another half a month, 7 of the 10 states had been taken down, which was basically locking in victory in advance. Of course, after fighting for so long, Jun Changshao also suffered losses. First of all, when the army went out, not only did they need food, but they also needed resources. They were burning almost all the time. Fortunately, there was the Heaven Veins mystic realm. Not to mention a plane. Even if they were to attack the entire upper universe, it should be enough. There were also casualties. However, the injured were the disciples, and the dead were the Avengers or the mechas with old facilities. The Sect of all times attacked the upper universe star spirit world. It was a complete one-sided suppression. They suppressed the other side to the point that they could not breathe, and could only watch as the city fell. A few days later, the 8th state fell. A few days later, the 9th state fell. On the sand table placed in the Sect of all times main hall, the entire star spirit world was filled with chess pieces. The only remaining central state was surrounded inside and out. Swoosh. The next day, Jun Changshao walked out and said, "Take down the last state and announce that the star spirit world is history." Yes. The disciples were excited. However, when they gathered in the state capital and prepared to attack the main state of the star spirit world, to announce the destruction of the upper universe, they suddenly found that the sky seemed to be torn apart by some kind of force, and huge battleships slowly flew in. "Not good," Jian Guishu exclaimed. "It's the army of the Sky Devil Emperor." Jun Changshao frowned. He had always had a question about whether the star spirit world was related to the Sky Devil Emperor. Now it seemed to be confirmed. "Reinforcements are here. Reinforcements are here." In Star Spirit City, the nobles who were originally filled with despair saw the battleships gradually appear, and felt the cold aura. They all cheered with tears streaming down their faces. The Star Spirit World is one of the planes under the control of the Emperor. Anyone who dares to cause trouble here will be sentenced to death. A deep voice sounded from the main battleship. Jun Changshao sat on the chair, the corners of his mouth raised slightly, and then he laughed with an arrogant expression. "Since you're here, then welcome death with the Star Spirit World." Ooh. The cultivation of the upper echelons and disciples of the Sect of all times was activated, and excitement appeared on their faces. They knew that the Patriarch was no longer wretched and trivial, but was going to officially declare to the Sky Devil Emperor, "Fight!" This day, the system sighed. In the end it still came. Every time I think of the host who just activated the system, of the iron bone that just developed, of the disciples joining the sect one by one and integrating into this loving family, it seems like it happened yesterday. All good things must come to an end. This matter is over. If fate wills it, we'll meet again. That you're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.